Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Avocado Gamescast. What's special about it? Well, we're not just talking about video games today. We're also talking about theme parks. Hooray! We've all visited theme parks lately, and we're eager to have a chat about our experiences, the good, the bad, and the Mr. Bones. But since this is, at least on paper, a gaming podcast, we're also going to discuss some of the things games and theme parks have in common. And on top of that, we're going to chat about some park simulation video games. Your roller coaster tycoons, your planet coasters, your parkitects, all that jazz. But before we get into that, my name's Merve, and joining me today, they'll imagine their own version of Epcot if they have to, it's Demyx.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And also joining us, he's the king of fast passes, the sultan of thrill rides, and the crown prince of park secrets. Give a warm welcome to Tereglith.
Thanks. I feel so regal.
I think that was kind of my intention to boost the whole prince princess thing that Disney's got going on. I like that whole vibe.
Yeah, the Fantasyland, weird Potemkin kingdoms, and
Yeah,
there's so many royals in like a 2-acre area.
I know. How could there be if the Disney princes ever got together in real life, I think a singularity of regalness would form, and they just kind of like collapse into, I guess, a gold hole.
Yeah,
That was not a great thing to say, but that's all right. We are starting off this podcast on the right foot. How are you folks all doing?
I'm doing all right.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm glad to hear it. I am doing okay for someone who stayed up too late playing video games, specifically park simulation video games. I stayed up very late playing Parkitect and realized, oh crap, this is like my childhood playing Roller Coaster Tycoon all over again. But we're going to talk about that towards the end of the podcast. Let's talk about our recent park visits. Demyx, you recently went to Disney World, did you not?
Yes, beginning of February,
Oh,
so
nice.
only a couple weeks ago. Um, so
What was
yeah,
that like?
I normally go to Disney every year because we have Disney Vacation Club in the family.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it is. It's fun. But last year I skipped. I did a Disney cruise instead. So the big new things were kind of Galaxy's Edge, obviously,
Yeah.
Toy Story Land, and honestly, the thing I was probably the most excited about because I'm a dork for park infrastructure was the Skyway.
Yeah,
I
Oh,
love the
yeah.
Skyway.
I
Uh,
so wanted to use that because I went to Disney during the winter, but I didn't. I wasn't able to book a Disney resort hotel. I only
mhm.
was able to book at Bonnet Creek, so
Okay.
I didn't get to use the Skyway, unfortunately. But it looks
well,
really cool.
you can still use it to park hop if you
Oh
have
yeah,
park hop. Yeah,
Like, I was
cool.
at Animal Kingdom Lodge, so it wasn't really that useful as transportation, but
it's not as far away as you
rode
can get.
it. I just rode it multiple times for fun. I checked out the Riviera Hotel.
Oh, nice.
And it's just nice. It's a nice one. It's DVC, so I'll probably try to stay there sometime, but Animal Kingdom Lodge is really my favorite.
Oh, it's the second time I went to Disney, which was many years ago. I stayed at like the music hotel, like the one of the cheaper ones.
Oh, the
I
All-Star
All
Music.
Star.
Yeah, I forget what they're all called. But I've never stayed at Animal Kingdom Lodge. How's that different from like the other resorts?
I mean, Animal Kingdom Lodge is really different from any of the other ones because obviously you have the animals, the actual animals and enclosures outside your hotel room.
Oh wow.
And just outside of ours, they had a baby zebra, which
Aw.
was pretty amazing. I think I posted the pictures in the avocado. But yeah, it's nice. They're just like there's various antelope and things wandering around outside your hotel, and because it's DVC, you have a larger room with a kitchen and more amenities. Um,
Oh, that sounds
and
so nice.
it's really nice. And it's just a gorgeous hotel. If you like the aesthetics of Animal Kingdom itself, it's obviously in the same kind of, looks a little bit like the Lion King.
Yeah, kind of. Um, how do I put this? Kind of safari chic, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like Disney has its own safari aesthetic that
Yeah.
they use. Obviously, Animal Kingdom Lodge, anything Lion King related, so it's in that wheelhouse.
Uh,
But it's a really, really nice resort.
did you go to any of the restaurants there? Because they have great reputations, all of them.
Yes, I've been to all of them. On this trip, I went to Boma and, the quick service. But
Hmm.
Boma is the buffet. Um, and I went there partially because my mother was there that day and she's a little picky.
Yeah.
So a buffet is very safe.
Yeah.
They do a few like sort of spicy, um, quote air quotes African foods there, but for the
Yeah.
most part it's just like roasted chicken and prime rib and all that. And they have these desserts called zebra domes, which are made with like cream and Kahlua that are delicious. So that they're kind of known for that. So it's fun. I really like the buffet. You leave there stuffed, obviously. And I've been to Jico, which is their nicer restaurant, and that was an amazing experience. I really like some of Disney's nicer signature dining when you can get in them.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
when you can afford it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the problem.
Yeah.
It is. I kind of wanted to go to one of the nice restaurants last time I went, but then I was like, I've already spent a lot of money on this trip, so I was perfectly fine just eating in the park. So you went to a lot of restaurants, stayed at a nice hotel. What do you think of the actual attractions?
I mean, so in Galaxy's Edge was obviously that was the big new thing.
Yeah.
I didn't do Rise of the Resistance because I don't get up that early on vacation.
Mm.
Oh
Um, so I did Smuggler's Run, which is the basically Star Tours but fancier. It's a simulation.
yeah. Yeah.
I I liked it. It didn't like blow my mind. It really was pretty much just like what I would expect Star Tours to have evolved into at this point. Slightly better simulator tech. It's got the kind of gamification which sort of works but kind of doesn't.
Yeah. Which position
Um,
were you flying?
I didn't get to be pilot. I got to be both
Uh,
gunner and engineer. So I was mostly doing single rider, and I don't think
mhm.
they give pilot to single rider.
I've done single rider probably like over a dozen times. I've gotten pilot exactly once on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They like I did single rider when I went, and they actually asked me if I wanted to be whatever, um, but they would have just like kept me aside by myself for about 10 minutes until a single rider pilot position opened up. But they were willing to let me do it, and I was just like, I don't feel like waiting.
Oh, that's surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
And
operationally, it must have been like not very busy. Because otherwise, you would just like get a buildup of single riders in that little round hub room there.
Yeah, probably. I'm guessing what had happened was it was like it was close to the end of the day, and what had happened was Toy Story Land had gotten so packed that day that like people couldn't even get into Galaxy's Edge because they'd actually closed off
wow.
the path between Galaxy's Edge and Toy Story Land, so that
Oh,
was preventing people from spilling over. Yeah, that was a hectic day. I don't know how they fit that many people in Hollywood studios. So you went to Galaxy's Edge. You went to, I guess, all the other main parks, Animal Kingdom and the like.
Right. Yeah, I still think so like as I'm a little disappointed with the Epcot construction and what they're doing to it, but that's my own personal
Oh, I'm
peeve. But
completely in agreement with you on that.
yeah, so I think Animal Kingdom remains the strongest park, even with Galaxy's Edge open. I mean, I like Galaxy's Edge. I'm not really complaining about that. I think Pandora is really probably the best thing they've done recently. And I have no attachment to Avatar whatsoever. I haven't watched the movies, but I really like Pandora as an Imagineering achievement.
It looks super, super duper nice. Like the funny thing is the night before I went on my vacation, I actually watched Avatar as like homework for vacation, which is the dorkiest thing on the
Right.
planet, but
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, most days you could watch Avatar in the queue for Flight of Passage because it's always 3 hours long.
Right.
Yeah, that's the one big attraction I didn't get to see at the end because I was not going to wait for 4 hours for that stupid ride. But like, I watched it and I was like, this is the epitome of a B plus movie. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that makes
this
sense.
this is pretty good. It looks really great. It's really pretty not exactly generic, but it's really predictable. You know exactly what's going to happen, but it's
Yeah,
not
it's
a
very
bad movie.
archetypal.
Pardon me?
It's very archetypal.
Yeah.
Like it's playing off of old like patterns and tropes.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I don't understand why this was the biggest damn thing in the world, but it works. And then when I actually went to the park, I saw, wow, they really actually captured the aesthetic of this film that had all this crazy CGI tech. So good on them for doing it. It's really,
Right.
yeah, incredible what they managed to accomplish in that space.
Yeah.
Weirdly, it
I
was like
think
the least busy part of the park because nobody wanted to walk around.
But it has a lot of pathways, so it feels more dispersed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I
Uh,
think what they did right with Pandora was they kind of realized that it wasn't really the plot people were into, it was the environment.
yeah.
So the land and Flight of Passage itself is pretty much entirely about just experiencing this environment.
Yeah, it's not like they're gonna have like Jake Sully walking around. So
Right.
yeah, you probably forgot his name is Jake Sully until right now. That's okay.
I haven't watched the movie.
Exactly.
But yeah, like compared to Galaxy's Edge, where a big draw is, you have stormtroopers wandering around. We saw Kylo Ren,
Yeah, they could honestly use more characters in Galaxy's Edge than what they currently have.
Yeah, Toy
But
Story I
Avatar
saw
sort
like
of-
Buzz walking around, which was fun.
Yeah, Toy Story has the green soldiers walking up and down all the time, and
Yeah. That part of the park was probably the busiest when I went. It was just nuts.
it feels surprisingly bottlenecky.
Yeah.
I think it's just because all the families with kids are there, but I kept feeling like I was getting trapped in the crowd there in a way that Galaxy's Edge, I really wasn't.
Well, and again, that's really the path design. If you look on the map,
Yeah.
Toy Story Land is just like one big long thing with like little spurs jutting out for each of the rides, whereas both Pandora and Galaxy's Edge have a whole network of pathways that sort of serve to disperse the crowds and prevent there being big log jams.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of an unfortunate way that they've designed it, but also I think it was kind of to facilitate traffic around that back part of the park, so you kind of just go through Toy Story Land and Galaxy's Edge in a continuous loop. But if once the queues start spilling out onto the main paths, then they narrow and they create the bottleneck. And the queues were spilling out into the main paths for it was so busy that queues were spilling out onto the main paths even for not Astro Orbiter. What's the thing for the
That would be
Alien saucers.
alien
Yes.
saucers? Yeah,
the abbreviation ASS. Alien
ASS,
Square
yeah.
Saucers. Yeah.
alien saucers. So yeah, the queue, it was so busy the queues were spilling out onto the main paths for alien swirling saucers. So like imagine the 3 rides all spilling out into the main paths for their queues. That
Yeah.
gets really bottlenecky.
Wait, even Toy Story Mania was?
Yeah, Toy Story Mania has this insanely long queue, and even that was
know.
spilling onto the main path.
That's
when was
probably the longest
terrifying.
queue out of any of the rides at Disney. I don't know if it is the longest. One of the longest queues. So there's so much space. Toy Story Mania's queue was so long. Not Toy Story Mania. Slinky Dog Dash's queue was so long at one point that it was actually spilling out of Toy Story Land into the kind of the main part of Hollywood Studios.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Wow. That
It's
is
like-
not worth it.
That was like a 3-hour queue for that one coaster.
Like
This is why you shouldn't go to Disney around Christmas.
no. Yeah, I stood in line for alien saucers for 30 minutes. That was not worth it.
Yeah, that's about 25 minutes too many.
Yeah,
It's a,
it was there.
it's
Slinky
a
Dog
fun
Dash is
ride, but
cute. I
like,
wouldn't really wait in line for it.
yeah, like Alien Swirling Saucers, like it's not a bad ride. It's just I've ridden a better version of it, and it's the
Mhm.
Mad Hatter's Teacup ride at what's its
Yes.
face, Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, that's a type of ride that's referred to as a flat ride, and
Yeah.
they're all just sort of like replacement level. Like they're not. It's hard to have a standout flat ride.
I, I remember
Yeah.
the X-Men version at Islands of Adventure. You could get going really, really fast.
Oh yeah, that's like the Storm Acceleron. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not one that I went on when I went to Universal last year.
It's not really worth it, but I remember that one being really, I mean, if you want to make yourself sick, that's probably
Yeah.
a good investment of your time.
Well, that fits with the Universal sort of aesthetic of
Right.
making
Yeah, like
everything
extreme
tense,
rides.
slightly more unpleasant.
Hmm.
Yeah, I find that Disney doesn't have a lot of like really super duper thrilling rides.
No.
That's just not their um, that's just not their bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually found that really interesting with the rides they've invested a lot of money into recently. They're not thrill rides. They're not doing that at all. They're all like experienceable by children. Like Flight of Passage is amazing technology, but is not a thrill ride. It's not scary.
Yeah, it's just kind of exhilarating.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Smuggler's Run is not scary at all. It's just like exciting. It's like a little video game.
Yeah, I would say they have three genuinely scary rides at Disney. Those are Tower of Terror, Rock and Roller Coaster, and the Yeti coaster. God, what's it called? I'm so bad.
Everest.
Legend of the Forbidden Mountain.
Yes, Expedition
Yeah.
Everest. That's what I'm talking
I
about.
always forget how intense Everest is until I'm on it.
Yeah, I rode that like I think I rode that twice when I was at Animal Kingdom, and both times I was like, "Oh dear God, this is a mistake." But then I rode it, and it was a lot of fun, so it wasn't a
I
mistake.
love Everest so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
I
single
always feel like it's a mistake when I'm going backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part
This
is
is the part I don't like.
So
going
I
back
rode
to
it
pitch
like
black.
12, 13 years ago. Um, like 12 years ago, I wrote it, and then I forgotten that it had a backwards section while I was on the ride. I was like, oh crap! I remember like I had the clear flashback to 12 years ago while I was on the ride while it was like hanging there, and then it dropped backwards. Like, oh crap! Now this is all coming back to me. Yeah, so I really enjoy their more thrilling rides, and I think Disney could probably use a couple more if they really want to build them. But I don't. I also think it's not really part of their aesthetic.
I think they've given up that sort of thing to Universal and to like regional Six Flags
Yeah,
and everything because they know that they're catering to families largely.
Yeah, they're very averse to anything with a height requirement because they know that that rules out so many, or anything with a high height requirement because they know that rules out so many people with families from going on it. So that's why
Yeah.
we'll probably never see like another coaster with an inversion because Rock and Roller Coaster is the only one that goes upside down at Disney World. But like
Right.
the Guardian coaster, the Tron coaster, they don't invert, and probably no other coaster they ever build will.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited for the Tron coaster.
Oh yeah, they're
Tron-
building it while I was there.
Yep,
Yeah.
I got pictures from the People Mover, and like Tron is my aesthetic basically, so I'm really excited to see that come here.
I love see the really funny thing about Tron is that I've experienced a lot of Tron media, but never the original Tron film. I've like
Oh.
played the first person shooter, which is secretly one of my favorite games of all time. I've like watched Tron Legacy. I love the Tron segments of Kingdom Hearts.
Those are some of the best parts.
I didn't know there were Tron segments of Kingdom Hearts.
So all I'll say about the Tron segments of Kingdom Hearts is that I think they do a better job of capturing the Tron aesthetic than Tron Legacy.
Wow.
Yeah.
High praise.
Yeah. Like the Tron 2.0, the first person shooter, that is like pure Tron aesthetic. It's so it's a weird fucking game, but it's really good. Anyway.
Yeah, I think the thing about Tron is it's almost kind of similar to what I was saying about Avatar, where it's really more about people like the environment.
Yeah.
I love the original movie Tron, but it's really hokey. Like, I love it, but it's hokey. You're not really watching it for the amazing plot. But it's such a cool look to it. It's just really perfect for a theme park ride.
Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of property you want to turn into a theme park ride, because theme parks really are all about recreating environment. They're not so good at recreating story, necessarily.
Right.
Yeah, like, I feel, and this is something we'll get into a little later, I feel like Disney's invested a lot in these narrative rides. And every time I ride with them, like, this is so cool, but also I don't really care about the story. I just care about the mood that it's generating. If that makes sense?
Yeah. I feel like Smuggler's Run had a little bit too much narrative. Like, I rode it a couple times and I didn't know who the guy hosting it was supposed to be.
I know he really wants coaxium. That's all I can say.
You're collecting a MacGuffin. And, like, I don't know. I feel like it could have been just as successful if you were just flying the Millennium Falcon, because that's what people want to do.
I'm sure it's one of those things where some executive is like, no, we can't let you ride the ship you really want to ride. Because they're really protective of their properties, sometimes in ways that are a little bit nonsensical.
Mm-hmm.
But it sometimes it depends on like business relationships that were forged so many years ago. Like, I cannot imagine the Disney of today giving the green light to Kingdom Hearts. But if you ever like read the story of how Kingdom Hearts got started, is basically Square Enix and Disney. I forget who reached out to whom, but they're like, let's do a video game collaboration. And Square Enix came up with like, I think it was like 4 ideas, 3 serious ideas, and one that was like some pie in the sky, practically joke idea. They show the ideas to Disney execs, and then Disney picks the most ridiculous idea. Which is, let's do this crazy action RPG idea that you guys have. That looks great. And they're like, oh crap, we actually have to make this now.
Yeah, with Kingdom Hearts 3, you can actually see how Disney is kind of clamping down on the weirdness a lot more. Like, I don't want to get into it too much because it's off the topic of theme parks, but basically, like, the older games have a lot of weirdness in the Disney worlds and kind of unusual choices like Tron to pick as worlds. And Kingdom Hearts 3 has very safe worlds like Toy Story, Frozen, Tangled, and they were all collaborations with the original creators, and they're all very safe in the aesthetic of the original films, and it's nice, but it's maybe a little less of the like
the wackiness.
Yeah, the wacky strangeness of now we're in a black and white
like
a world of the original black
Disney
and white
cartoons.
Mickey, 30s cartoons with rubber hose animation, which you got in Kingdom Hearts 2. It's all mostly recent properties and very safe.
Yeah.
Very synergistic, it sounds like, too.
For what, sorry?
Very synergistic, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, we got to promote this, this, and this, and ignore
I
anything
get the
we
sense
can
that
immediately monetize.
So, I don't know how much Tetsuya Nomura is lying about this. Whenever he's interviewed about it, he says he's pretty open about what they will and won't let him use. And it seems like they'll let him use anything, but they'll also mandate that he uses certain things, is the impression that I got. So, he said the only thing they didn't let me use was Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, and the reason they gave was that it would be too weird. That's what he said about Kingdom Hearts 3. And then it came out that they're actually developing an Oswald the Lucky Rabbit series, and they didn't want, I guess, the return of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit to be through a video game. I'm guessing that's why they didn't let him use it.
But it
Was
was.
that one? Yeah, that Wii game.
Yeah, it was Epic Mickey that reintroduced Oswald.
Right. Well, Oswald hasn't been in anything since Epic Mickey.
I mean,
so this is like a reintroduction of Oswald now through animation, which they can control instead of letting Warren Spector fuck around with it.
I will never stop being sad about Epic Mickey.
Because it was good and then the sequel sucked, or because it always sucked?
It has so much potential, but it's not really a good game. And the sequel's just bad. But the first one, it has a lot it's one of those things where like it has a lot going for it, and you could see how it could have been great, but it's not. It's just too janky. It has a bunch of bugs and repeated environments and half-baked ideas in it.
So I know we're getting way off topic, but I think this is we just let things go off topic on the podcast. So Warren Spector was at the head of development for that game, and you might know him better as the guy who developed Deus Ex. But he was kind of the head of development, like the lead guy for both those games. But the lead designer for Deus Ex was a man by the name of Harvey Smith, who went on to work for Arcane, makers of Prey and Dishonored. And so when Epic Mickey came out, and then Epic Mickey 2 came out a few years later, Dishonored came out, the kind of narrative that emerged was maybe Harvey Smith was the secret sauce in Deus Ex and not Warren Spector, which I don't know exactly how to judge, but it having played Arcane's output and then Epic Mickey exists, there's some potential truth to that narrative. I don't know. Yeah. But it's hard to tell with video games because so many things can go right or wrong in production. One would hope that Warren Spector hasn't lost his touch, but we'll see.
Yeah, like a lot of Epic Mickey could have just been running over budget or running over schedule because it seemed really unfinished.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to say what could have been there.
That's what I would really like to see, and this is something that I think Disney has been not so great at capitalizing on, is making video games of their characters. I mean, Kingdom Hearts exists, but that's who knows what the hell that is.
Yeah, it is pretty good. That's like,
but like, I mean, I literally finished Kingdom Hearts 2 nights ago. Kingdom Hearts 2 nights ago, so I can't like be dismissive. But like, you wonder why there's not like, why there aren't more games like Epic Mickey, or why they haven't made, more licensed tie-ins. They used to do it a lot back in the day. Like every Pixar film had a licensed tie-in, and they just kind of stopped doing that.
Yeah, one of those was really one of the games that I played probably most in my life is Treasure Planet Battle at Procyon. Which,
I didn't even know they made a Treasure Planet
wow.
game.
Yeah, it's a sequel to Treasure Planet set 5 years later, and it's a real-time strategy like ship combat game. It's really fun.
That is a deep cut.
Yeah, you can get it on Steam.
I mean, Treasure Planet itself is kind of a deep cut now because there is literally not a single mention of that in Disney parks that I could find.
No, like sometimes Jim Hawkins, a walk-around character of Jim Hawkins, was sighted in Tomorrowland last month, and that's like the most that has been seen in the parks since 2002.
That's ridiculous. So they've completely memory holed Treasure Planet, Atlantis, and The Emperor's New Groove of all things. And that, like, the last one really kind of disappoints me because The Emperor's New Groove was not like a massive financial success for Disney, but it's kind of a cult classic now. And the fact that it's just not there at all in the parks is a little disconcerting.
Yeah.
It's my favorite Disney movie, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
an unorthodox pick, but I really respect it.
Thank you.
It's so great at what it's trying to do, just outright like Looney Tunes comedy.
I think just because if I need to cheer myself up, that's always a good choice. It's short, it's snappy, it's really funny.
Yeah, it is probably the single funniest Disney movie. And I really like it. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I would say it's definitely up there. And I would love to see, like, I don't know, a llama coaster. Make a llama coaster. I would love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pitched for years that like if they added South America to Animal Kingdom, they could do a coaster that's Kronk and Yzma's slide down into the lab. It's like it's right there. That's even treated as a theme park ride in the movie.
Exactly. That would be amazing.
I think one thing is that the whole like making rides based on their recent IP only really started happening not too long ago. Like there were a lot of things that people were like they could make a ride of this that never came to fruition. One that comes to mind is it was rumored for years they were going to do like a roller coaster based on Monsters Inc., the Dora Room.
Yeah.
It seems so obvious, it's popular, it was a money-making property, and it just never happened.
Yeah,
Instead,
I mean,
they have the Laugh Floor show at Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
yes, that's the other unfortunate acronym at Disney World. It's the Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor is the official title.
That's incredible.
I have never thought that.
Yeah.
That is a way better show than it has any right to be. Like
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I guess they do it all with real-time motion capture, but like it's way more entertaining than I thought it would be. I was like, oh, this is gonna be some dumb show for kids, and no, it's actually pretty funny. So yeah, that's the other thing about Disney parks. My recent visit that I noticed, the shows are way better than I thought they would be.
Yeah,
Like all
you
across
would
the
think
board.
Frozen sing-along would be terrible, but it isn't.
Oh no, the guy the guy they got to do like so they have like two MCs. The male MC is completely ridiculous. He's like he made the show. He's just cracking terrible puns every 30 seconds. It's great. Highly recommended if you are even like you don't even have to be a fan of Frozen to enjoy that thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go to that next time. That's one of 3 attractions that I have not done since getting my annual pass. I never think to go to it.
Yeah, I would.
It's
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's the meta humor version of Frozen.
Yeah.
It completely. It's honestly more geared towards the tired parents taking their kids to it than it is to the kids themselves, because it's just constantly dunking on the movie. It's great. And I say that as someone who likes Frozen.
Yeah.
Like, I really like the movie. It's still great to see it dunked on repeatedly. Yeah, so Tereglith, you're an annual pass holder, so you go quite regularly. What was your last visit like?
My last visit was yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah, so I decided to go down. I'm currently planning 2 additional visits the next 2 weekends because I'm taking my sister to go see Galaxy's Edge for the first time because she's not
nice.
an AP. And then I'm taking my dad on the 7th for his birthday. We're going to ride Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, which is the brand new ride at Hollywood Studios that's opening on March 4th.
Oh, wow.
So I got
I
fast
did
pass.
not realize.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was opening so soon.
Yeah, it's coming out quick. I mean, the original idea was that it was going to open before Galaxy's Edge to help sort of spread the crowds around, and that clearly did not happen because they diverted every worker in Orlando to trying to get Rise of the Resistance done on time instead. But yeah, now it's
Oh, that
finally
thing is still a
opening.
technical mess, but we'll talk about
It sure is. But yeah, I want to get both of them on Rise of the Resistance because my sister hasn't been on it because she hasn't seen any of Galaxy's Edge yet, and my dad has only been on it once. So I was sort of checking out what the boarding group situation is right now. So I think this was alluded to earlier, but currently and for the foreseeable future, Rise of the Resistance, which is the mega new dark ride at Galaxy's Edge, is on a boarding group only virtual queue system where you have to arrive ungodly early in the morning and then bring out your phone and join a boarding group within most mornings the first 60 seconds if you want to be able to get on it at all during the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I sort of wanted to see how wild that process has gotten because it was originally very chill. I went down the second day that Rise of the Resistance was open on December 6th, and they had opened the park unexpectedly at 6 a.m., despite saying that it was going to open at 9 a.m. on the official hours. So I had a hunch that that would happen, so I just sort of wandered right in and got a boarding group real easy. But as more and more people become aware of it, it gets harder and harder and more cutthroat to actually try to get one, because the ride is currently going down many times a day, and it's also running at a limited capacity, so it only gets through about 20,000 people per day, like on a good day, and there are often like 60,000 people in Hollywood studios nowadays, so it's rough stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not to sort of interrupt Tereglith's story. When I went to Disney, I went to Hollywood Studios super early in the morning, ungodly hour, got a reasonable boarding group number, one that was they estimated would be most likely to board. But then the ride must have broken down so many times that day that they usually get to like boarding number 120 or so. They stopped at like 70 something today.
Yeah.
That day.
That's
and I was like at 93rd or something. So like, yeah, you're almost definitely going to get on. And then didn't happen. So they gave me a free pass to whatever ride I wanted the next day. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try again tomorrow because I was planning to go to Hollywood Studios again. Got a boarding group, like one of the earliest boarding groups, 30-something. Got on the ride. And the way it works, and this is not an experience that I want to spoil for anyone who eventually gets to ride it. So all I'll say is that the queue is kind of part of the ride, in a way. And the other feature that I feel comfortable spoiling is that there's no track exactly. I think it's all done with magnets, is my guess.
They're autonomous. They're called LPS, local positioning system, trackless ride vehicles. So they're just sort of driving around. It's like an Amazon warehouse robot kind of.
Is that the same tech that they used in like Tokyo Disneyland?
Yes, that's where they pioneered it on Pooh's Honey Hunt.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what tech goes into it, but it is probably the single most technically impressive ride at Disney, and I understand why it's constantly breaking down, because the number of moving parts they have in this thing is completely nuts. I don't know how they pulled it off.
Well, they sort of arguably haven't yet, but fingers crossed.
Yeah, I don't know. They're very secretive about what it is that's causing the constant breakdowns. I'm not entirely sure what it could be. It could even be part of the queue.
Yeah, because it's all a single linear experience. So like a lot of rides, like Smuggler's Run or Flight of Passage, will have multiple like theaters or turntables that they can, even if one of them breaks down, they can keep running the other three. But Rise of the Resistance, if anything breaks, the whole thing's just down until they can fix it.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of when Test Track first opened and it was down more than it was up. That was also just a single track. It was also very new tech with controlling the vehicles.
Yeah, very similar situation there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's only one ride that breaks down more at Disney, and that's the Primeval Whirl at Animal Kingdom.
Oh,
Isn't that perma gone now? They're taking it out?
The rumor is that they're going to get rid of it permanently. Nothing's been officially announced. When I went, it was the first time. They've now changed it to a seasonally operating ride. And when I went, it was the first time in weeks that it had been open at all. And it's super fun. It's your typical, spinning wild mouse coaster or whatever. I think it's a great ride, and I'll be sad to see it go if it eventually goes. But apparently it's just a technical nightmare that's constantly breaking down.
Primeval Whirl harmed me because of how fast it whips around. It is not good for your shoulders.
Oh yeah, that thing. I think I told this story before on the forums, but the one I'll mention it again. When I went, I was standing in line behind this kid. It must have been like, I don't know, 10 years old. But he was super duper scared. And his mom or his aunt or whoever his guardian was like, "Oh no, don't worry. This isn't." He asked, "Is this a roller coaster?" And she's like, "No, no, no, don't worry. It's not a roller coaster." And I'm standing in queue behind this woman who's like lying to her kid.
At
Like,
a ride that is fully
bald-faced
open to the
lie.
air.
Yeah,
Like,
you
Sorry?
can see it's a roller coaster.
I know. That's why I was like, this is such an obvious lie. So I'm standing behind this woman who's like lying to her kid. This kid is scared out of his mind. Then he gets on the ride and he has the time of his fucking life. And he gets off. He's like, let's do this again. Oh man. So apparently that lie was a good one.
I guess so.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of times you do see that where kids are terrified and then they end up loving it. I had a girl behind me on Tower of Terror yesterday who went through a similar journey.
Yeah, I love Tower of Terror because I love the Twilight Zone, but I can't ride it. I can't deal.
I rode it once and I'm like, you know what? I don't need to ride this kind of ride ever again.
Oh, I'm very different in on that type of intensity. I like because Tower of Terror, it is fairly intense, but it is a smooth motion. I feel like, and especially since the refurb last summer, so like I'll just go on it. I've been on it like 6 times in a morning. Like I
could not
so
do
much.
that. That would kill me.
Yeah, I would.
But the funny thing is,
die.
I can take intense coasters. Like I'm fine with Rock and Roller Coaster or any number of inverting, looping steel coasters. I can do those completely fine. But you put me on a tower drop ride, and I'm just like, nope, this ain't great, son.
Yeah, it's the sensation of falling that I have a really hard time dealing with.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
I don't do heights very well. I'll be honest. But
See, I feel so serene when I'm falling on Tower of Terror. It's kind of like it's meant to be a bit of a scary ride, but I just find it like very pleasant.
Yeah, I think that feeling of serenity is called l'appel du vide. Um, so, yeah, but anyway, yeah, I really enjoy, some of these like more intense rides. I wish Disney had kind of like a better balance of more intense and more gentle rides, but also some of the gentle rides are really like some of them get slept on, I think. And people don't appreciate like some of the really nice gentle rides as well.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't hear a lot of people talking about how amazing Navi River Journey is.
Yeah,
I am a Navi River Journey apologist. I like that ride a lot.
I'd like it a lot better if it were twice as long, because then you could really sort of luxuriate in it. As it stands right now, it's only like 4 minutes long, so you don't ever really get a chance to relax. But it's a cute ride. I'm never mad when I go on it, but I certainly wouldn't wait like more than 15 minutes for it.
Yeah, it is a little
I love
short.
how you guys are mentioning all these park times, like these wait times for like 15, 20 minutes or whatever. When I went to Disney, like at the height of holiday season, no ride had less than an hour wait. Practically.
Oh, well, I mean, to be clear, that's
Right.
how it often is at Disney World. I'm just spoiled because I am an AP, so I can get fast passes a lot of times, or I can go like during September when the crowds are really low, and I get to be picky and choosy about these things because if I don't hit it this time, then I'll hit it next week.
Yeah,
Makes
that's me because going almost every year and choosing what time. Like beginning of February is a really low crowd time relatively. So we were able to do all those things.
Yeah.
It was surprisingly busy, I have to say, compared to like how that time normally is. Still not as busy as like Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas I
Yeah.
think will forever be the absolute ceiling on park crowds. But lately, this February has been crazy crowded, and the summer months are actually getting a little bit nicer to go during, except for the 95-degree heat.
Yeah, there were a lot of cheer groups. A lot of cheer groups.
Yeah, that's what Disney is doing. They want to spread the crowds around as much as possible, so there is no slow season. So they'll schedule cheer competitions, and they'll schedule marathons, and they'll schedule conferences, and like try to just pack in as many events as they can during what used to be the very slow times.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
And the South American tourism has affected that a lot too, because you get a
Mhm.
lot of the tourists from Brazil going during their summer, which would be January and February.
Yeah, to get our nice winter weather.
Right. So it makes sense, and it's good for Disney because it spreads out the crowds more.
But it
Yeah,
is kinda,
when
yeah.
I went this past winter, the temperatures were varying a lot from lows of 12 degrees Celsius to highs of 29 degrees Celsius. Sorry, don't ask me to convert that to Fahrenheit. I can't do it. Um, and like, so that's like late. That would be like, I don't know, typical like early spring weather in Canada to like typical extremely hot weather in Canada. That would be
Why, what is 29 degrees Celsius?
it's like 80, it's like just below around
84?
85 Fahrenheit. So we're
Yeah.
talking between like 53 and 85 Fahrenheit ish.
Yeah, that's my upper limit on what's pleasant or comfortable in the parks. Once it gets above 85, then it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
That was the range within like 3 days. The temperatures were just fluctuating like mad while I was there.
Yeah, that's Florida. We've had that like this past week too, because it was up to the upper 80s earlier this month. And then yesterday when I went, a cold front had just swept through overnight, and it was like drizzly and 50, and all the tourists were wandering around like, I thought it was supposed to be warm in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the biggest Schadenfreude was the day it was all drizzly at the park, and I'd brought an umbrella and I had a jacket and a sweater because I'm like, yeah, I checked the weather forecast. I know the high today is like 12 Celsius. I'm good. And everyone else was running around the park shivering because they didn't prepare.
Mhm.
I feel bad for the kids, but if I see like a 40-year-old there running around without a raincoat, I'm like, you can check the weather. Come on.
One thing that always used to amuse me when I lived in Central Florida and went to the parks a lot was tourists who think, oh, it's the Sunshine State, and don't realize that every day from like May to September, there's a thunderstorm at 3 p.m.
Yeah, or lately
Yep.
at 6 p.m. Weirdly, I wonder if
Yeah,
it's a thing, but yeah,
and just totally getting caught off guard by that.
Yeah, people don't check the weather, which
No.
is something you'd think they would do before
Yeah.
going places that are outside.
well,
I don't
it's very relevant at Disney World because it shuts down about half the rides. Anything that's outdoors, when there's a lightning strike within 10 miles, they have to shut it down.
Which makes complete sense.
Uh-huh.
Right. And
Yeah,
it's
so Go ahead,
often
sorry.
during the summer, like every other day.
Yeah.
yeah, you'd think they'd catch on, but unfortunately they do not. Is there anything else you folks want to mention about your recent park visits? Any rides or shows that you thought were particularly cool they wanted to talk about? Sorry, go ahead.
I can sort of run through the rest of my day. I arrived, so
Oh, yeah.
I live about an hour away from Disney World, so it's not a quick trip necessarily. It is sort of it's an investment of a day when I go down there. But I had to leave my house at 6:15 a.m. after working until 2, so I was a bit loopy all day. I got into the park at 7:45. I got my boarding group at 8 a.m. on the dot. I was boarding group 51. And like it's insane how quickly they go because you're standing in a group with whatever ride you're going to go on first. You're standing around next to all the other people who are also rope dropping that ride. And
Yeah.
like I got my group, and then 10 seconds later, somebody got got a group that was 10 groups later. So
Yeah.
they just go so fast. I rope dropped the Rock and Roller Coaster single rider line. It's a pro tip there because the normal line was already very long because it's so unusual what's happening in Hollywood studios nowadays because most of the time, like park goers are lazy. They get there at 10 a.m. But when you need to be in the park to get on the number one ride everybody wants to go on, that means there's 20,000 people in the park at the very beginning of the day, and every line is just swamped from the get-go. So, yeah, I did Rock and Roller Coaster, which is a heck of a way to wake up. And then I did Toy Story Mania as sort of research for this, since we're going to talk about video game-y style rides. Toy Story Mania, it's not my favorite, but I guess we can circle around to it eventually. So yeah, I watched the final performance of Star Wars: A Galaxy Far, Far Away, which is the costume show that they do in the middle of Hollywood Studios, where they just have all their Star Wars costumes walk out and sort of pose for a little bit.
Yep, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing I usually avoid.
That's a thing that I just had some time when I was there to stand around and watch it. I'm like, well, if I didn't have the time to stand around and watch this would have been a waste of time. But
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hokey, but somehow like the just the combination of the John Williams music and Luke's speech from The Last Jedi, it always does kind of get to me a little bit. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, but also I love Star Wars a lot, and it's making me like kind of.
yeah.
Hmm.
My problem is I don't have a childhood attachment to Star Wars because I first saw Star Wars at age 24.
Mm.
Right.
So that kind of, yeah, I never developed that attachment. If it was like Digimon up on stage, I'd be like, yeah, fuck yeah. But,
Well, maybe you'll get that eventually. Like, if Nintendo Land's a big success, all the other parks will jump on it, and there'll be like a Digimon Land at Six Flags or something.
Yeah, I'm going to
would
hold
be
out
so
for Persona
sad.
Land.
for so
That'll be a hit
fantastic.
with the kids, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What they really should do is put Sora and friends in Disney World.
Yeah, they've been very reluctant. There was
Yeah.
there was a Kingdom Hearts pop-up event at Disney Springs some time ago, and that's like the most they've done. Disney Springs being the outdoor mall at Disney World.
I went to
Yeah.
that. It was the Kingdom Hearts 3 demo station.
Yeah. How was it?
That was all it was. I mean, I played Kingdom Hearts 3 for like 10 minutes. It
Oh.
was, yep, this is definitely Kingdom Hearts.
Mm.
So yeah, they just don't acknowledge Kingdom Hearts in the parks. I have
That's
one
probably
Kingdom Hearts
a s-
pin that I
It's
got
probably a
there.
smart thing to do because Kingdom Hearts is weird.
It's very niche. I think it's very niche. It's fairly niche among video gamers, and video gamers are a small portion of the people. Not really a small portion, but I think people don't realize like it's a much smaller audience for that than for their big movie properties, so they just don't acknowledge it.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. It's also just a really fucking weird game.
It is.
Well, they also try to sort of craft their own parallel mythology. Like, I don't know if either of you are familiar with the Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom.
Oh yeah.
That's like a trading card game that you can play with these interactive stations that are located all around Magic Kingdom, and it has like all the villains are coexisting in this universe and trying to attack the Magic Kingdom, which also exists in this universe. And I don't know, maybe they feel it would be too flashy to try to acknowledge both.
Yeah, I've always felt like Phantasmic was kind of the Kingdom Hearts of Disney World.
Yeah, good point.
It's definitely got that feeling of all of the Disney properties together in a big mishmash.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it worked. I think it works. I think it works really well as a show that combines the properties in a way that takes advantage of the iconography. Like, you know, these are the villains, these are the good guys. It's almost like the plot doesn't matter because we have those associations with the characters they're showing.
Right.
And then they put it together in this really spectacular way where they make it look like the water's on fire.
The thing is, though, like so much stuff at Hollywood Studios, you can really tell that it is sort of frozen in time at the
Yes.
last moment that they ever put any money into it. So there's like a 5-minute Pocahontas sequence,
Yep.
and if they were making that ride at any point in the last, or not ride, if they're making that show at any point in the last 20 years, there would not be a 5-minute Pocahontas sequence. But because it was made right at the instant where Pocahontas was released, and then they have never touched it since, it's just like this weird time capsule.
One thing
I
that's
kinda like
kind of
that, though.
funny, yeah, one thing that's kind of funny is they actually have spliced Elsa and Anna into like one of the water screens.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the only updates they have done.
Yeah, because it doesn't cost them any money.
Yeah.
I kind of like that it's the rides and some of the shows preserve the Disney's cultural history because they're otherwise only too content to kind of raise it to the ground. Like just look what they're doing to Epcot right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Demyx.
It's okay.
But so I'm glad that they preserve some of this stuff, because otherwise it'll just kind of disappear into the ether, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind when they preserve stuff when it's good. Like, I think that it should be sacrosanct. But like that's the thing. Universal is very unsentimental about their history. Like, they will just cut and run instantly when they get the chance. Like, they raised Jaws to make Harry Potter, even though Jaws was considered one of the finest rides ever built. Like, the only thing still operating in its original format at Universal Studios Orlando is the E.T. adventure, and everybody's like on pins and needles thinking that's going to go away any day now. So, like, there are some rides at Disney that they will never get rid of, and I think that's good. But when it comes to entertainment offerings, I could stand for them to update them a little more often than once every quarter century.
I will say some of the things that they've held on to are puzzling, but I'm glad they've held on to them. Like, the Swiss Family Treehouse.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that thing. I have no idea why they've kept it around.
My big surprise was when they actually restored the Tiki Room.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That
I
was-
saw that.
Not think that was ever going to happen. And I love the Tiki Room.
I mean, the only reason it happened is because, for any listeners who don't know, the Tiki Room is an attraction that was created by Walt Disney in the 60s to capitalize on the tiki craze, essentially, and all these animatronic birds sing to you. And it was the first wide-scale application of animatronics. In the 90s, the Disney World version of this ride was rebranded as Under New Management, and they added in these terrifyingly giant animatronics of Iago and Zazu from Aladdin and The Lion King, respectively. And they were just like cracking hacky 90s entertainment jokes and saying that they were like buying out the Tiki Room and they were going to use their millions from their movies to like bring it up to date. And it was just deeply unpleasant.
No.
And then a fortuitous fire actually like caught in the attic of the building and burned the Zazu and Iago animatronics.
That's so poetic.
Yeah, they were forced by the Tiki gods to restore it to its original format.
Wasn't it on Mark Davis's birthday?
Oh, I didn't know that detail.
Yeah, people thought it was like someone said it on purpose, which sounds like a conspiracy theory, but yeah.
In any case, I'm glad that it's been somewhat updated from its original form, but it's more or less what it used to be. And people seem to enjoy it when I went last time.
Yeah.
So, good on them.
I mean, when the crowds are that heavy, people just enjoy having a bench, I think.
Yeah.
But,
It's nice to sit down for a little bit at
Yeah.
Disney.
Yeah, this is why
My
I
feet
love the
hated
People
me.
Mover.
Yeah.
yeah, 11 minutes.
That the people mover moves way faster than I thought it would. I'm like, wait, I'm on a roller coaster. I did not realize this.
The People Mover has that part where suddenly you swerve into Space Mountain and it's dark and they're screaming,
Yeah.
which always scared me when I was a little kid because it was like, what's happening, you know?
It's like, oh no, are we on Space Mountain now?
Right. It almost looks that way for like a second, especially if you're a little kid and you don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it's a weird ride, and I'm glad they've kept it around because it's kind of the only attachment Disney has now to like the whole retro future aesthetic that they've, again, sorry, Demyx kind of leached out of Epcot. Like, it's just in Tomorrowland now. And I'm glad they've kept the People Mover around as kind of a nod to that part of Disney's history, if nothing else.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they've updated the narration for whatever they've changed in the park.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the
Still
People
proud of
Mover itself was kind of a utopian project in the style of the original Epcot because it was like sort of Disney pitching it as a potential for future urban transit options. Like they wanted to sort of try to roll it out in a bigger way eventually.
Yeah, they had a lot of weird ideas for just like urban development back in the 60s and 70s,
Yeah.
which is like they were gonna like build corporate towns, which thankfully didn't happen. But I still like the ideas that went into it, just as almost like museum pieces. And I'm a little sad that they're kind of trying to sweep that under the rug now. It is what it is. So what else did you do on your day at Disney World, Tereglith?
So it was a short day because again I was very tired. So yeah, after doing Tower of Terror with the little girl who was terrified and then came to love it, I rode the Skyliner over to Epcot. It was a very chilly Skyliner ride because it was 50 degrees with 20-mile-per-hour winds. But I stopped and watched some of the World Showcase entertainment. The French servers who do the chair routine where they stand the chairs up and then balance on them. So that was kind of
I wish
fun.
I'd seen that.
Yeah, there's a lot of little entertainment options like that at World Showcase that just sort of pop up randomly. It's one of the things I love about Epcot is like you never know when you're going to see just some sort of street entertainment.
Yeah, I miss some of the old options that they used to have. I miss the Candy Lady.
I don't know if I ever saw her.
Yeah, the one I saw was the Taiko Drum Show at the Japan Pavilion.
Yes.
Yeah, that one's hard to miss. Because you can
That's
hear
fun.
it from America.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was quite good. A little long, but good.
Yeah. And then I ate at the brand new Regal Eagle Smokehouse at the American Adventure at Epcot, which is the second restaurant that is only very lightly themed after the Muppets.
That's cool. How was it?
It was very crowded because it was like it just opened on Wednesday, I think. But yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, it's barbecue. It's better than your standard Disney barbecue. Put it that way. They have like 4 sauces at the sauce bar, like a vinegar-based, sweet and spicy. Like they feel kind of more authentic than you would think. I had pulled pork butt and the beer battered onion rings were very good. The theming is really like sort of on the same level as Pizza Rizzo. If you've ever been in Pizza Rizzo at Hollywood Studios, where it's just kind of like they gave the Imagineers $500 and said just cover these walls. So that's sort of what they did. So yeah, unfortunately, no Sam the Eagle animatronic, nothing like that. But yeah, it's an improvement over the whatever the previous thing was called, the Liberty Inn, I guess.
The McDonald's.
Yes, the former McDonald's.
Yeah, there are a lot of those at Disney where it's just like, here's a burger with a funny name, and like just call it a burger.
Yeah, they don't even
Same
give them
trouble.
funny names anymore.
No.
It's like, here's your slop.
I mean, I think it's good that they're at least attempting to do something with the restaurant in American Adventure that's, an attempt at American cuisine that isn't just burgers and fries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I strongly I would think, if you're going to do American cuisine, you do the pies, you do the barbecue. Not like burgers are pretty universal. You could also put those in like a Belgian restaurant,
Yeah.
So like pick something quintessentially American.
Well, also they were already serving them across the park at the Electric Umbrella. Like,
Right.
I'll spot them one boring quick service per park because there's always the picky dad who's like, I just want some beef. But get all that out of the way. Use your Restaurantosaurus and your Electric Umbrella, and then make the other ones interesting for us. And so that's what they've finally done.
Yeah, like I'll give them credit for making the Galaxy's Edge dining options surprisingly risky.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did
So
you do there?
I actually had 2 things there. I had the big like Ronto wrap or whatever it's called, which is just like the big long, like the gigantic sausage in a kind of Mediterranean-ish wrap.
Yeah.
With like sliced pork.
Yeah,
some
and then
vegetables.
the peppercorn
That's
sauce.
actually surprisingly good, and I say that as someone who doesn't typically like pork. And the other thing they have, which I didn't like as much, but I just commend them for taking the risk, is a surprisingly spicy shrimp and glass noodle salad.
Oh yeah, that one it was like almost astringent. It's like that one had a very intense dressing on it.
Yeah, it's extremely intense. I'm like, this is a risk to feed to people at a theme park.
cool. Yeah.
So I didn't really like it, but I respect that.
Yeah.
So good for them for taking a little bit of a risk. So you ate at the barbecue place. Anything else you got up to that day?
No, then I just took the Friendship boat. I took a little nap on the Friendship boat, which is the boat that goes between Epcot and Hollywood Studios by way of 3 different resorts on Crescent Lake. And then I drove home. So yeah,
Nice.
since I have my AP, I like to just sort of do half days. Like if I hit 6 rides and have a good meal, then I'm like, okay, that's enough. I don't need to go hard every day and like rip dropped clothes.
Mm-hmm. That's not the best way to do Disney, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Just sort of
like when I
relax.
go, it's like when I went, it's like I have to be at park from opening to close because I just have to take advantage of everything. And I did that for 5 days in a row, and I was like, oh dear God, I'm tired by the end of the 6th day. So,
Yeah.
but that's like
I
one
sort
way
of-
to...
Hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I sort of skipped over. I did do Galaxy's Edge. I had a fast pass for Millennium Falcon, which the fast passes for those just opened this week.
Uh-huh.
So I was a pilot. My co-pilot was a 5-year-old, so we crashed into a lot of stuff.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I had the morning Ronto wrap as well, which is that's the big pork sausage you mentioned, but they have a morning version that instead of the sliced pork has an egg patty, and it's like it's rapidly climbing the list of my favorite park food. Like I don't normally eat breakfast, but I will go specifically to have a morning Ronto wrap when I'm there in the morning. It's
Yeah,
tasty.
I'm very glad that at least Galaxy's Edge has taken somewhat of it's taken quite a few risks for a Disney park, which I appreciate. They even have blue alien milk. Although the blue alien milk is kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
The
'Cause
conceit
it's-
of... Oh, sorry.
All I was gonna say is I understand why it's a non-dairy thing, so that more people can drink it, but it's still a little disappointing. It's like a weird soy-based, overly sweet, pineapple-ish drink.
Yeah, I believe it's actually rice milk, frozen rice milk.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what disappoints me about it most is the price. It's $8 for this little glass. And what that tells me is that they don't expect it to be something people have more than once. They're putting it out there so that you can try it and be like, oh, I had the blue milk, and then you're done. And
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
I'm there all the time, I prefer stuff that you can like sort of keep enjoying. Like,
Yeah, I had it at Disneyland last summer,
mhm.
and I was like, I don't need to have this again. It was fun once.
Yeah, like I want to shout out the Night Blossom at Pandora because I feel like the food at Pandora was really sort of a test run for Galaxy's Edge food and drink. Because Pandora also has a quick service. Like, have you been to that?
That's like my new favorite quick service in the parks, actually.
Oh, I was at Pandora in like the morning, so I didn't eat anything there, unfortunately.
But yeah, they have these bowls that are really good, and it's just that you choose a base and you choose protein, and then they all come with slaw and bobas on them.
Okay, so it's like Pandora Chipotle, basically.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those trendy bowl concept places that we have a lot of around here.
We have so many of those in New York. For some weird
Right.
reason, unexpectedly less popular on the West Coast. So when I used to live in LA, they didn't have that many of those. But on the East Coast, now that I'm in New York, oh dear God, every other block is one of these really expensive bowl places that I eat at because I'm basic and lazy.
Yeah.
Same.
So,
But I mean, this
Yeah.
opened at Disney World in 2017, so it's pretty impressive that they got onto a trend that early, because they're usually like 5, 10 years too late.
so yeah, good on them for like catching a trend and being a little experimental with food. Because especially theme parks, you think burgers and hot dogs, chicken nuggets. It's good to see them branch out quite a bit from that at some places.
Yeah, 'cause it can really contribute to the experience of like a themed land. If you eat something that feels alien on an alien world, then it's engaging sort of all your senses in the themed experience.
Exactly. Like I can fully believe that eating that gigantic weird sausage made me feel like I was eating alien meat. Which I'm totally on board with. I will eat alien meat. Like no, this is Like like I said, I don't really like pork, but if I imagine myself eating an alien instead of a pig, that makes me feel better for some reason.
Yeah,
I don't know.
you're eating a
That's a little weird.
Ronto. It's that
Yeah.
big ugly creature that George Lucas added to the special edition of the original Star Wars. So you can feel like you're getting revenge on those ugly effects that he put in Mos Eisley.
See, I don't know enough about Star Wars to know what was
Well, I
new
can
with the
feel
special
that way
editions and
anyway.
what wasn't.
Yeah.
Because I've only ever seen the special editions, which I know is probably heresy to
Well,
you two.
anything that's CGI.
No, I think I've only seen the special editions.
As a
Yeah,
true
I'm-
fan, I have the 2004 DVD box set with the the original theatrical editions ripped from Laserdisc. But yeah, they certainly don't make it easy to see anything that isn't the special edition. So I can't blame you.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
Star Wars, but I'm really actually way more of an MCU person.
Mm.
Okay, so you would love Universal then.
Uh,
Well, Universal's
not.
not MCU.
it's not MCU. I mean, I did love Universal a lot when we went a lot when I lived in Central Florida. Because I don't know, I rode the Hulk coaster a lot. It
But
was-
Yeah, the Hulk
it's not the
coaster.
same as Disney.
It's not. It's not. Like, and we're not getting most of the MCU stuff in Disney World because of the whole Universal east of the Mississippi deal.
Hmm.
Are you guys familiar with that?
Yeah, the most
Some-
confusing legality.
Yeah, Disney is not allowed to open up anything with the Marvel name on it east of the Mississippi inside of a theme park, which that definition has like lawyers all over it.
Yeah, because they did do The Void, which can be viewed as themed entertainment, but it occurs at a separate, like, third-party location. The Void is that VR thing, so they have that Avengers damage control scenario that you can do, but it's not in a theme park, so they're okay.
Yeah, and they're
Oh.
allowed to do Guardians of the Galaxy inside of Epcot because that was not part of the deal, because that was not really a thing in the late 90s. Like,
Yeah,
I
the
think
contract-
the team existed, but it was so obscure it was never part of the contract.
Yeah, it's only
That's-
the characters that appear in Islands of Adventure that they're not allowed to use.
Right. So they're also allowed to do Black Panther, I think.
Possibly. See, I think this is all like third-hand like internet reporting of what is in a contract from 20 years ago, but I
Right.
believe the theory was that any character families in the comic book sense that are included in Islands of Adventure are off limits. So because Black Panther is an Avenger so often, and also associated with the Fantastic Four, because he debuted in their book, it's possible they wouldn't be allowed, but I mean, nobody's quite
Nobody's
sure.
actually seen the contract.
Yeah.
It's all.
Yeah, I think this was based off the fact that they did Black Panther screenings inside one of the theme parks. So they were speculating that it was therefore allowed, but who really knows? There was the thing where they had the Avengers wraps on the monorails and they had to
Oh,
take them
yeah.
off again.
Because the monorail goes into Epcot as it goes in.
Yes.
They were disallowed. Yeah.
Oh man, could they potentially legally put like thin TV screens on the outside of the monorail cars and have them display Avengers content up until the second it enters Epcot, at which point they switch the TV screens?
That's
Could they legally
probably
do
been
that?
proposed at some point.
But that would require
Because that would be
spend money on
like a
monorails.
fucking incredible troll move.
Yeah. And they do have Avengers buses. They're putting
Yeah.
wraps on all the buses now.
And the Skyway has some MCU stuff on it, although it might just be Guardians.
Yeah, I think it's just
That
Groot and
is-
Rocket that I've seen.
Hmm.
That is so hilarious that they're taking advantage of this in the pettiest ways possible.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're
my
just
gosh.
going to go right up to the line.
Yeah, it's so confusing if you don't actually follow any of this really legal stuff, which I'm sure most people don't. Like, you see some of the Marvel stuff at some of the Disney vehicles, then you go to Universal and they have different Marvel stuff, and you wonder why it's all not in one place.
Yeah.
Like,
And
intellectual
just-
property is so fucking whack.
And just like it's gonna be confusing to like the non-theme park nerd why they're opening up a Guardians of the Galaxy coaster, but they don't have an Avengers ride and they don't have Spider-Man, and
Like,
Yeah.
imagine like a 9-year-old kid who's into this stuff. Like, what does she think? You know?
Right.
probably fucking confused.
Yeah. Well, and it's only going to get worse this summer because they're opening the Avengers campus at Disney California Adventure out in Disneyland.
Like, there's
Oh,
gotta
yeah.
be so many people at Disney World who are just like, where do I meet Captain America?
Yeah.
Because
And
that's
like,
something
well,
you would expect to do at Disney World.
you're
They're
gonna,
like
you're
30
gonna get on
kilometers up the
I-4,
road.
drive,
That's where
you're
you're
going
gonna
to
see
go
it.
to Universal. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and it's also going to be like there will be 2 Spider-Man rides, one at Disney, one at Universal. It's like, which one's the better one? Oh, the one that opened 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so just a brief kind of summary of what I did last time I was at Disney World. So I was there for a total of 6 days. So I did 2 days at Magic Kingdom, 2 days at Hollywood Studios, 1 day at Epcot, 1 day at Animal Kingdom. Saw pretty much everything. Not everything, but a lot of what you would expect a visitor to the park to see. For me, kind of the highlights were a lot of the rides you'd expect to be highlights. So I really liked Animal Kingdom. I really loved Dinosaur and
Awesome.
Expedition Everest. I know Dinosaur's kind of hokey, but I still love it.
Oh, I love Dinosaur.
Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
it is the scariest ride at Disney World, actually.
Oh, really?
In terms of the pure, like, it isn't like a physical. It's not physically scary in a way that like a big drop on a coaster is, but the animatronics are very in your face, I feel like.
It's a lot of
Yeah.
yelling and noise and darkness.
Yeah.
I could see that being quite tense for a lot of people. Kali River Rapids is a really good ride. Probably rode it the right day. I went to Animal Kingdom on the one day it was super hot, so that was the right day to ride
Yeah.
Kali River Rapids.
Yeah.
Feel bad for the people who rode it in 50-degree weather. 10 Celsius for people who use the correct scale.
Yeah.
Weather. It's so weird being a Canadian in the United States. Anyway, but the big highlights at Animal Kingdom were, of course, the animals. So, like, Kilimanjaro Safaris is fantastic. We had an amazing tour guide for that particular experience. The trails, which aren't really trails, they're really just like guided zoo tours. Those are actually incredibly well put together. So if you go to Animal Kingdom, please do the Maharaja Jungle Trek and also the Asian Trail.
Well, that Maharaja is the Asian Trail.
So Maharaja is the Asian Trail.
Yeah.
It's
It's
the African
Gorilla
one.
Falls.
Gorilla Falls
Yeah.
Exploration Trail.
Also, the Tree of Life Garden, which recently reopened from refurbishment.
They have
is-
otters.
Yeah, they're so cute.
Oh no, I kind of missed that
Yeah.
when I went, unfortunately. But yeah, so those are super well put together. Highly recommend doing that. I'm the one person who loves Primeval Whirl. And
I have a fondness for Primeval Whirl as well.
I mean, I like it. It just hurts me. I also don't ride Space Mountain because it hurts me. So,
Yeah,
you
Space
like it
Mountain's
because it
very
hurts you.
tricky.
Sounds like Kingdom Hearts. Sorry.
Yep.
And I will put in a really good word for the Rivers of Light show. So most Disney parks do an evening fireworks show because Animal Kingdom is animals and fireworks would scare animals. They can't do that. So they do this ridiculous light show on boats with a lot of fire and fountains on the big lake at the center of the park. And it's really neat. So if you get a chance, you should watch that. What else did I do? Went to Epcot. Don't have too much to say about Epcot because so much of it is under construction. I would say, Test Track, Living with the Land. You
Yes.
should definitely go on those things.
Yeah, Living with the Land is
Yep.
the best ride at Epcot.
Yeah, Living with the Land is so underrated. I love it.
It's so cool to see all the crops they're growing with the hydroponic tech there. Well, it's not all hydroponics now, I think. In the past, it was all hydroponics. Now they're using some other pioneering growing techniques. It's actually incredible to see what they have going there.
It's also really the last holdout of Epcot's original aesthetic.
Yeah.
Sure.
And they still do they still have extensive research collaborations with universities in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So all the agricultural researchers actually collaborate with Living with the Land, which I think is super neat. It's part of that original vision, like you said. And Test Track, of course, is also just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say you shouldn't do is don't go on a journey into imagination. Just don't do it. Please.
That makes me so sad.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a catch-22 because you're like trying to vote with your time almost. So like, do you try to encourage them to put money into giving us better Figment, or let them know that we hate the current version of the ride enough that they need to give us a new one? That's like, how do you best save Figment?
It's just such an annoying ride.
It's like the Weekend at Bernie's corpse shamble of Figment, and I can't support it. I really love the original ride. I have a Figment right behind me from like 1980s Epcot.
I wish that I just wish it were a better ride. That's all. I want good things. I want like a nice kiddie dark ride with this cool character to succeed, but I also want to punch Figment in his smug fucking face. So
he was not annoying in the original ride.
Yeah, he was like a little sweetie pie.
Yeah, I don't
bring back that Figment.
It's like the late 90s everything has to have attitude.
Yeah, he's like a watered down Bart Simpson or something.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, he was also an overlay over the second version of the ride. I don't know if any of you went on the second version of the ride.
I did not. See, this all happened while I was very young. Like, I don't think I ever was able to go on the original Journey into Imagination because it closed while I was still like 3 or 4, I think.
Yeah.
So it was still open the first time I went to Disney, but my mom just really didn't want to go on that ride. So she was like, no, we're not going on that. We're not wasting our time. So I never got to see the original, unfortunately.
So the original was amazing, and when they tore it out, so this is the third version of the ride. The second version of the ride had no budget, it had no theme. It was the worst thing I had ever seen at Disney World. It had no Figment in it either.
It was so hated that it closed down within, I think, a year and a half.
Apparently, it was the only ride that when they did surveys, people who went on that ride significantly rated their Epcot experience lower than everyone else.
Yeah.
As a result of going on this ride. It was so bad.
Yeah, it takes a lot for them to take urgent action on a ride. Like even something like Stitch's Great Escape, which was pretty universally loathed because the primary thing it does is put chili dog scent in your face. That stayed open for like a decade, but Journey into Your Imagination and Superstar Limo are basically the only things that were so toxic that they were like, okay, we need to do something about this now, and shut them down within like a year.
Yeah, like the park is better if we just kill this ride.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't Superstar Limo close down because at around the same time it opened, there were some serious paparazzi incidents that were high profile, and they're like, yeah, this is not a great look for us.
That's why it got made into the shambolic disaster that it was. It was originally going to be a high-speed ride where you're being chased by the paparazzi, and then when they were deep into development, Princess Diana died. So they were like, okay, let's make it slow. And then it was already misbegotten from the beginning, but just, like making it a slow ride just made it an absolute disaster by the time it actually came out, and everybody just hated it so much.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So what else did I see? I went to Magic Kingdom. Saw all the highlights. The mountains. The mountains are good. Mm-hmm. They are what they are. I will say the version of Splash Mountain at Disney World is much, much less scary than the version of Splash Mountain at Disneyland.
I hate the Disneyland logs where you have to like straddle them weirdly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That version is much faster and has more drops. It is also a lot scarier. And also it's a lot more, it kind of thrashes you around a lot more. I remember because I had my water bottle in a pocket in my backpack on that ride, and it went flying out while I was on the ride, and I was lucky that it stayed inside the car, but it rolled all the way to the front of the car. And I was like, well, this is going in a zippered pocket.
Yeah.
So other surprisingly good things, I would say that the whatchamacallit. So the Barnstormer, still a great roller coaster. Don't sleep on that. I really like
It's
Astro
only 37
Orbiter.
seconds long.
Yeah. It's short, it's sweet, but it's great. Astro Orbiter, Disney has like 4 of these rides, right? They have the Dumbo ride, they have the Magic Carpet ride, and they have the ride at Animal Kingdom with the dinosaur
The
flying.
Triceratops spin.
Yes, that's what it's called. I went so recently, I can't remember the names of any rides. It's terrible. So Astro Orbiter is by far the best version of that ride, just because of how it's placed in the park and what it allows you to see.
Yeah.
And all the other versions of it are basically redundant. So,
Right.
yeah.
The only thing about Astro Orbiter, I almost never go on it because that line is so long because that elevator is so slow.
Yeah. They really need a better way to get people onto it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. What else did I see? I mentioned Swiss Family Treehouse, which I don't know why is still open, but I'm glad it is. And then weird stuff. Weirdly, Swim Dwarf's Mine Train was like by far the most popular attraction when I went.
It's because it's still the newest. It's been 6 years, but it's still the newest thing at Magic Kingdom.
I had to stand in line for, I think, an hour and 30 minutes to ride that coaster. It's basically... Oh God, this is going to be really, really whiny. It's basically just a worse version of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. I don't know why it's so popular.
That's
I wanted
pretty
to like
correct.
I really don't get the hype over it.
It's a roller coaster that little kids can ride, I think.
Yeah.
I think it goes
But it's
back
also
to Disney catering to families with small children.
But it's also scarier than Big Thunder Mountain Railroad because the cars can pitch back and forth.
Yeah, I do like that.
Roll back and forth, which makes it more intense. So I don't know why people would think it's a kiddier coaster, other than the theming, which is Snow White-ish.
It's a lot less intimidating from the ground.
Yeah, but it is just like a scarier experience overall. So I just don't know it's a less fun but also scarier experience. I just don't know what people are getting out of it, other than the novelty.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of those rides that's just so short compared to the amount of time you have to wait for it, too, because it's only like a 2-minute coaster. It doesn't feel like it has the sort of the experiential weight to it to justify the enormous wait that you have to go through to get to it.
Yeah.
It doesn't, yeah.
That makes sense. Finally, the other 2 things I wanted to mention. Jungle Cruise is great if you have a tour guide who's great. Because all they do is crack terrible puns the entire time you're there. Which is the only way to make that kind of thing, because it's so hokey and the animatronics or whatever are so old that the only way they can make it like engaging is to just kind of lean into the corniness of it all. And that just makes it really fun. So our tour guide was great and just cracked terrible jokes about cannibals the entire time we were on the cruise. The other thing I want to mention is whatchamacallit, the Carousel of Progress, which Demyx was like, you have to ride this ride. Okay,
Did I say that?
Yep.
I thought I insisted you needed to ride Small World.
Oh, you insisted on both.
Oh, okay, good. Good for me then.
So I think Demyx and I just have different tastes in experiences. Because I don't have to talk about It's a Small World, because I don't want to give the listeners of this podcast nightmares. But I can talk about Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress, which I like to call um, 3 decades of sexism in a burned turkey, um, because that's basically what it is.
It's historic.
Yes, it's a historical
Disney
document.
history.
I get that. It's just really, it's so tedious.
It's also,
but also
I mean, I like it as a show. I will also acknowledge it's the single best place in Magic Kingdom to take a nap.
I would
yeah.
track
I kind
the
of
Carousel
like.
of Progress when it broke down and had to see the same scene 4 times in a row.
Which one?
Ah, you think I would remember? It was burned into my brain. I think it was the second one, which is the 20s.
Yes, the hottest
Yes.
4th of July we've had in years.
Yeah, I think it was that one.
Oh no, I'm so sorry for you. Like that's some Stockholm syndrome shit, though.
It is. Like, I also got trapped on the old universe of energy
Oh,
and
no.
the movie about oil that they used to play. So I have Stockholm syndrome from that too.
The only Disney ride I've been trapped on was at Disneyland. I got trapped on the haunted house for a little bit.
Mm.
Oh, the Haunted Mansion?
Yeah,
That's not so bad
that's the
to
only
be
one.
trapped on.
Yeah, that's not bad.
That's also one that stops a lot because they have to stop the Omnimover every time they load a wheelchair guest.
Oh, okay, yeah. That might have been it, but it stopped for a little bit longer than that. It was like 3 minutes. So basically, all the music turns off, but the sound effects and the animatronics just keep going. So it's this really weird experience.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
stopped in like the balcony area above the dining hall. So I just watched the same ghosts run around in a circle for 3 minutes.
Oh, well, if you're above the party, then that's like the best place to be stopped.
Yeah, there's a lot of details and
Yeah. I got
Yeah.
stopped one time in the staircase room. There's not a ton to look at in there.
no.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I got evacuated off of Test Track once.
Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah, that was fun. All the lights come up, they take you down the track.
You know, you would think that for all the times that I've been on rides, I would have gotten evacuated through backstage at some point. It's never happened to me.
That's surprising. I guess it's not that often.
Yeah.
Yeah, Disney stuff doesn't break down that often, with the exception of Primeval Whirl and Rise of the Resistance, which break down every other hour.
Yeah. Frozen Ever After broke down a lot when it first opened, but I think they've gotten it worked out now.
Which ride, sorry?
The Frozen ride at Epcot, Frozen Ever After.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Anytime you have
Uh,
animatronics next to water, they tend to have a hard time.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
the one time I rode that, Elsa was broken.
Yeah.
She
Oh,
was
no.
just standing there.
I wrote it, and I'm like, this is good, but I miss the old version of it,
And
which
Maelstrom?
was more like,
Definitely.
traditionally Norwegian themed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have the Maelstrom memorized from how often I rode it, so I don't know. I miss it.
Yeah, like, it's not even I could say the new version is bad. It's just I want the old version back.
It was such a weird thing that, like, you're not going to get back. Like, I think a Frozen ride is a really obvious thing for them to do, and they execute it in a really obvious way. But the
Mhm.
Maelstrom was just weird. There were polar bears and trolls and oil rigs,
Yeah.
and, like, I have no idea what's going on.
It was just a tour of Norway.
Yeah,
Honestly, I wish every country in World Showcase had an incoherent boat ride like that. It would
I
be so
know.
much fun.
I miss the old Mexico boat ride, too.
See, I don't
As they
remember a
rethemed it as
time.
Three Caballeros.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Grand Fiesta.
hmm
Yeah, it's not a bad retheming, but again, it's okay.
Well, you know, the big rumors are going to make it Coco now.
That I would be fine with that.
Sure.
Although I don't want to see Three Caballeros kind of excised entirely from the park. Though they do mention it in quite a few places in Hollywood Studios, like in the Walt Disney Presents exhibit. They have cells and stuff of is it cells? I don't know. They mention it in there. It's definitely in there.
Right.
Which is another place where you'd think they'd mention Treasure Planet and its ilk, and nope, not in there either. Completely memory hold. So, yeah. Walt Disney Presents, though, is otherwise like a really... I know it's a totally whitewashed version of Disney history, but it's also a really well put together exhibit.
Yeah,
So,
it's a fairly legitimate like museum style exhibit. They have some really interesting artifacts in there. It's a great underrated place to go in.
Yeah.
And then just to mention the other stuff I did at Hollywood Studios, don't sleep on... So obviously there's Slinky Dog Dash, which is a great kiddie coaster. I went to see Phantasmic, great show. Did both Rise of the Resistance and Smuggler's Run, both of which are pretty good.
Rise of the Resistance is more than, pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say Rise of the Resistance is not... Here's what I'd say about Rise of the Resistance. Not my favorite ride at Disney, but by far the most technically impressive theme park experience I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
I was in awe of, my one thought going through my head while I was riding it was, how the hell are they pulling this off?
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool,
super
yeah.
impressed.
Yeah.
Did all the other stuff that one would usually do at Hollywood Studios, like Star Tours, Tower of Terror, the Stunt Spectacular. One thing you shouldn't sleep on, and I know this is going to sound ridiculous, Lightning McQueen's Racing Academy is surprisingly entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, they got anything with Michael Keaton in it is going to be entertaining. That's just science.
Yeah, and I'm like the way they have the car moving, the animatronic car with like the, so basically all of it is completely mechanical except for the face of the car, which is like an LCD screen that bleeds into, it's kind of almost seamlessly into the rest of the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So the way they've put it together is surprisingly high tech and really well done. They have the screens all curved around you in this semicircular shape. It's really well put together and surprisingly fun. So highly recommend it. But the one ride that I wanted to talk about, and this leads into our next subject, is Toy Story Mania, which is I guess you'd call it a dark ride. It's an indoor ride where you're on a track and you have a kind of gun on a string that simulates various midway games, and you stop at about 4 or 5 different midway attractions, like a ring toss and like a traditional kind of water gun shooter, and you try to score the most points by hitting targets worth different point values. Surprisingly fun. I really enjoyed it. I know, Tereglith, you said you went on that as well.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
It's not one I usually seek out because I am almost always at the parks alone because I'm the only one who has days off on Friday. And that's a pretty good day to go. So Toy Story Mania is a ride where you're ostensibly competing against the other person in your car, but if you're there by yourself, it's just sort of a solo challenge and it's not quite as exciting. I'm also, I don't know, it feels kind of underwhelming to me in that it's essentially just like a Wii game, but you're being moved from one to the other. So yeah, it's not.
It's like the world's most expensive Wii game.
Yeah,
pretty much.
It really is.
Yeah, even though I guess it is technically a dark ride, I kind of hesitate to call it that because there's no real sets, and the ride part is kind of inconsequential. You could achieve almost the same thing by sitting in one place in front of a TV screen.
Yeah, I think it's more accurate to call it a screen ride, because every element of it does come down to the screen, and it's an interactive ride, but it's sort of lacking in the theming department, and there are sort of secrets to it in that there are certain things you can shoot at to get bonuses, and it'll shoot air at you if you hit certain things. So those are kind of fun, but I don't know, it just doesn't appeal to me that much as far as a ride experience goes. And it's not a great game experience either, I don't think.
I would say I enjoy it more on the whole than something like Disney's other attempt at a video game-ish ride, which is Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin. But I think Space Ranger Spin works better as a ride.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
Because it has show scenes.
Right.
But yeah, Space Ranger Spin, it is kind of, you don't get any kind of feedback on whether you're hitting anything or not. You just sort of hope that the score goes up as you shoot wildly.
Yeah.
So it is kind of
Yeah.
fun to see where your projectiles are going on Toy Story Mania. The other thing about Toy Story Mania is it always makes my forearm so tired.
Yes.
Oh God,
You're yanking on that
yes.
string nonstop.
I really wish they just had like a button you could hold down.
Yeah.
Like pulling the string over and over again. Oh God, that is gonna aggravate someone's carpal tunnel.
Yeah.
Like me.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I really enjoy it, but if I were to ride it over and over again, I'd be like, you know what, this is not that great.
Yeah, I think I did it twice in a row once, and I was just like, yeah, my wrist is not functional for the rest of the day.
That's all right. Now your wrists are just as sore as your feet.
Yeah. I think I was less charitable to it when it was the only Toy Story ride in existence for 10 years or so. Well, aside from Buzz Lightyear at Magic Kingdom. Like, it felt kind of lackluster as a standalone ride at Hollywood Studios, but now that it's integrated into Toy Story Land, I don't mind it as much because it's like there's more variety of experience there now. So it is kind of interesting to have an arcade ride alongside a roller coaster and a flat ride.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
completely forgot about that. So if you look at the map of Hollywood Studios, it kind of the waiting area kind of goes all the way to the back of the central part of the park, and that's where you used to enter the queue from. And then they moved it into Toy Story Land when they built Toy Story Land.
Yeah.
But they're still using the old queuing building for the ride. So that's why that thing is constructed the way it is.
Yeah, because it actually predates Toy Story Land by about a decade.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it must have opened up, I think, very shortly after the last time I was at Disney World, which was like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
The aisle where the Toy Story Mania, where the queuing building is now, where the entrance to Toy Story Mania used to be, was one of the areas that used to be backstage tour. It wasn't really meant for walking. So that was also a giant bottleneck because it was much too narrow for such a popular ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was
now
popular
the
from the
only
jump.
thing.
Yeah, at the time when it opened, it was kind of like the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train,
Yeah,
where it was just
now the only
packed
thing.
constantly.
It's the rare ride where they actually added capacity after the fact, because it originally only had 2 loops and they added a third one. They did the same thing at Soarin' where they added a third theater because it was so popular.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. The only thing they have now in that area of Hollywood Studios is Meet Edna Mode from The Incredibles. That's all that's there now. It's like the only part of the park that's dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird. It looks like a mistake. It's
I mean, that's
they didn't
because
plan for this.
the
Sorry.
that's because the studios is kind of a mistake.
Yeah.
Because it was not because in their very original plan, half of it was the studio tours.
Yeah.
Literally everything past the Chinese theater was the studio tours. So it's not constructed like a hub and spoke like every other Disney park.
Yeah, so it's sort of this weird like mishmash
Yeah.
where, like before Galaxy's Edge opened, you had just these huge dead ends. Like you walked into Toy Story Land, and the only way out was the way you came in, and it was a traffic disaster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
How long ago did they close the back lot? Because I think I remember it from when I went the first time to Disney World.
I believe it closed in 2015 in advance of the Toy Story Land and Galaxy's Edge construction.
Oh, okay. So I did not imagine going on that studio tour, because that must have been 97, 98.
Oh yeah,
When I
it would
saw
have been, it would have been in
Oh,
full
yeah.
swing.
yeah, it was relatively recent.
Okay, I didn't realize that closed down so recently. Because I remember like it was like a studio tour where they took you through a bunch of old movie sets, and they're like, "This is how we filmed this, and this is how we filmed that."
Yeah, they did change the format on the studio tour several times because they originally it was I believe when the park opened it was 2 hours long because they wanted to replicate the Universal Studios Hollywood tour that is like the only thing you do at that park, and then they gradually cut it down to like 60 minutes and then 30 minutes finally because the original conceit of Hollywood Studios at the time, MGM Studios, was that it was going to be a working production facility, which
Yeah.
quickly went out the window because, as we mentioned before, in Florida, it rains every day for 9 months out of the year. So they just sort of gave up on that. So there was a long time where they were running the studio tour, even though they knew that it was not actually a working studio. So they were just kind of like, look at the Golden Girls house. Look at the snowspeeder. Here's makeup. Okay, we're going to dump water on you now.
Yeah. And they used that whole section for the Oswald lights, which are
the
now
Osborne.
gone.
Yeah, the Osborne lights.
Yeah, sorry, the Osborne family lights.
Yeah, on the streets of America.
Yeah, that's all gone now, which is, it's kind of baffling to see such a huge part of the park gone. Like, it wasn't a great part of the park, but some part of me always expects, like, to turn the corner and all that weird backlot stuff will still be there.
Yeah. Because what that was.
Yeah, I think I only ever experienced the short version of the studio tour. It was like 20, 30 minutes max.
Yeah, they didn't keep it long for very long.
Which is understandable, because if you have kids on that thing, they're going to need to pee about 45 minutes in, right?
Yeah.
I know from experience that there were bathrooms available on that tour.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the very original version of the tour was, like you said, it was like 2.5 hours long. But it wasn't, you would do part of it on the tram and then you would queue up for like the walking section and there'd be like a gift shop and a little snack bar.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would do like the next section and then, there'd be another little break and then you'd queue up for the next section. I think there were three parts to it.
This was entirely on trams. I must have been 8 years old at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
The original version with the walking parts, I think, went out around the same time as like Tower of Terror, which would have been like 94 maybe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that sounds
that time.
This was really early.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So that was about 4 or 5 years before I visited Disney. Yeah, that's an interesting thing that they kind of took out of the park, and now they've turned Hollywood Studios into more of just an all-around immersive Hollywood themed experience, if that makes any sense. I think Galaxy's Edge and Toy Story Land are kind of their own thing, but the rest of it is very much in that like mid-century Hollywood Art Deco style, which is a large, like having lived in LA now, it is very much a part of LA architecture. They capture very well, even if it's a lot more pedestrian friendly than the actual LA. They capture that aesthetic super well, and that's part of what I think Disney theme parks do super well. From what I've heard, Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal also does very well, is immersing you in a themed world. That's something that video games also can do quite well. It's something where I think theme parks and video games have kind of taken cues from each other and how to immerse people in a world.
Yeah, because it is.
Although
it is like a 360 environment where everything has to be like you can touch it and it's real, and you have to buy that you are in this other place, and you have to do the same thing virtually in video game.
Disney does a lot of kind of virtual camera work in their parks that I find really interesting. Like, they'll direct tourist attention by painting things a color that blends into the sky so you don't look at it.
Yeah, they call that bye-bye blue and go away green.
So while you obviously can't control where people look in a theme park, they do a lot of like design work to try to get the average tourist to look at what they want you to look at.
So one of the games that kind of pioneered that in video games was like Half-Life. That is what Half-Life does, right? You have complete control throughout most of the campaign about where you look, right? You can just move your mouse around. But they direct your attention to various features of the maps you're going through, either because NPCs will talk to you, or the way that the map is set up will funnel your vision a certain way. And at the time that game came out in the late 90s, that was revolutionary. because video games up until that point didn't really do that. If they wanted you to look at something, they just plopped you in a cutscene. And so it's interesting to see that kind of like virtual camera work parallel between like the Disney parks and video games have taken it up. Like the BioShock games do that very well. The Uncharted games also do that quite well. And those are both, like, especially Uncharted is a game that we think of as kind of the video game equivalent of a theme park ride in a lot of ways. So I think that's like an interesting point of commonality between theme parks and games.
Yeah, the one that always reminds me of video game design is the Haunted Mansion, because if you remember the design of the Doom buggies, you're blocked off behind you. It almost kind of wraps around you a little bit, so they restrict your field of vision to what you can see. If you really want to, you can like sit up and peer around and see some out of show things, but they control what you see largely. And it's a lot like video games where you could look at other things, but a lot of times if the video game is well designed, you're on this path where you look at like what you're supposed to be looking at, the big set piece or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of the dark rides at Disney are like that. Like Spaceship Earth is like that. And the Finding Nemo ride at Epcot is also like that. But I also want to mention Spaceship Earth because I think it fits into an analogy that Demyx once mentioned to me, which is that video games are dark rides are a lot like walking simulators. I know some people hate that term, but I think it's a reclaimed term. I think they're proudly walking simulators now. Anyway, so it's a ride where kind of the experience comes from having a narrative or information delivered to you rather than emphasizing thrills, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's how I think they're analogous, but Demyx, maybe you had more to mention on that point.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Spaceship Earth is a lot like that. To make like the video game analogy, one game that reminds me a lot of dark rides and Disney World design is What Remains of Edith Finch. Especially the Haunted Mansion comparison, because you're going through various rooms and gradually learning a story about what happened in a house. And the rooms get kind of increasingly weird as you go along. And you could easily imagine like the bulk of Edith Finch happening as a dark ride, at least like the portions where you're exploring the house, not the side stories. It's a lot like the Haunted Mansion or like Spaceship Earth, where you're moving through various set pieces.
Yeah, I agree with that comparison. The one that kind of stuck out to me is I think of something like the dark flume rides, the really slow flume rides. Those remind me. Have you ever played a game called Abzu?
No.
I'm done.
Abzu is basically, I would say, aquatic journey. So it's you're kind of swimming underwater and you have to navigate through this world that's very pretty and there are lots of colorful fish and I don't know what else to say about it. It's aquatic journey just tells you pretty much all you need to know.
It sounds nice.
It sounds like Navi River Journey.
Yeah.
It is. A lot brighter than Navi River Journey, but same sort of sentiment of kind of slowly winding your way through this alien world and in an aquatic setting. Not at all like It's a Small World, I would say. I don't know what the video game equivalent of It's a Small World is. Maybe Five Nights at Freddy's. But yeah, I think some of these, I think it's a really clever comparison that Demyx told me about.
Thank you.
So another thing I wanted to mention is sometimes games like deliberately take theme park aesthetics off either for gameplay or narrative purposes. Like obviously there's the obvious thing where Kingdom Hearts 3 is like the Disney rides in the game as like special attacks.
Wait, it does?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Demyx could probably tell more about this. I don't know if I'm explaining this accurately.
No, that's pretty much it. You push a button and suddenly you're sitting in a teacup and spinning around and hitting enemies.
Wow.
So
It's actually a really bad mechanic.
Yeah.
It's cool the first time you see it, but it's a really long
Like super
cutscene
OP?
it's super OP. It totally takes you out of the combat. So like after all, the first time you're like, woo, it's a pirate ship. And then 8 hours later, it's like, oh, the pirate ship. Yeah,
pirate
whatever.
Every time I think
I actually think it's kind of. I think
on how
Sorry, go
insane
ahead.
Kingdom Hearts is, a whole new level opens up that I hear about, and I'm like, oh no, I have no idea the depths of madness contained in this franchise.
it is the most convoluted. I am in shock that Disney lets this continue to exist.
You haven't even seen the convoluted parts.
Oh yeah, I'm about to start Birth. I'm probably going to start Birth by Sleep later today, and I'm just steeling myself for the absolute mad fuckery that I'm going to
Also,
experience.
Birth by Sleep is not that bad because it's a prequel. Kingdom Hearts 3D introduces time travel, which is a mistake if you want your story to become less complicated.
Yeah, I think. So talk to me towards the end of this year, because I'm making my way through the entire series right now. Talk to me in a few months, and you'll probably see me tearing out. I was going to say tearing out my hair, but I don't have hair because I'm bald. Tearing out my beard.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
speak to you about it.
I look to it.
So I was going to say, actually, I think the theme park thing in Kingdom Hearts 3 is kind of clever because it doubles as a safety PSA. If you stay safely on the ride, you're safe. And if you goof off or are outside the ride, then you'll get killed. So
Yeah, that about sums it up.
yeah, safety PSA right there. But like other games that have kind of drawn from theme park aesthetics, I don't know if y'all have played BioShock Infinite.
Yeah.
But the quieter parts of the game where you're like navigating through Colombia, that aesthetic is just lifted straight off Main Street USA from the Magic Kingdom. And there is a reason why they do that. It's supposed to kind of highlight the artificiality of it all.
Yeah, 'cause that is kind
uses
of that's sort of an echo of an echo, because obviously Main Street USA is based on real life small town turn of the century America. But the fact that Main Street USA is so iconic now means that is our primary referent for that aesthetic now, as opposed to the genuine thing it was based on.
Yeah, exactly. And the way they use that aesthetic is as a way to comment it. But then Disney does like the same thing unironically. Last time I was at Disneyland, they were selling plush cushions that were in the shape of the Mickey ice cream bars with like a bite taken out of it.
Yep.
And this is like iconography of iconography. Like the only reason that ice cream bar is iconic is because Mickey Mouse is iconic. And then that ice cream bar has become iconic through that, and then they took the iconography of the ice cream bar and like slapped it on a cushion. And it was like the weirdest like late capitalist change.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Disney merch department really goes up their own asses sometimes. Like
the one that comes to mind are the shirts that say like "Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas."
Well, I had one of those shirts, so
I don't doubt it, but it's the safety announcement. It's the safety announcement in Spanish on their rides, and they put it on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Just because they know that if you go to Disney World enough, you have that burned into your brain. And you're like, oh, I remember that.
Y'all know the song like "Tragic Kingdom" by No Doubt, which is the closing track on the album of the same name. It starts with that safety announcement. You say, it starts with someone saying, "Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor." And then it launches into the song, which is a critique of Disney World. Back when No Doubt used to be anti-capitalist. They did, back in the day. They have a song about the Gulf War. I'm not making this up. Anyway, enough about No Doubt.
Yeah.
But like that they're like taking that iconography to make fun of Disney, and Disney will take that same iconography and use it unironically.
Mm-hmm.
It's the weirdest thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the distinction that I sort of draw, I'm a pretty picky consumer of merch at Disney World.
Mm-hmm.
So like the things where they're trying to make something a thing, like the Mickey bars being made into like, oh, this is so iconic, we're gonna make pillows and socks of it now. That's like, yeah, I don't know about that. But things where sort of the fans made it a thing first and they're capitalizing on it, I don't mind that as much. I guess it's kind of equally crass. But like people did love por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas beforehand. So it feels like they're fulfilling a natural need or a natural desire for like merchandise of that versus trying to force like, oh yeah, we all love the Mickey bar. You want the Mickey bar on your handbag, don't you?
I mean,
No, I want the Mickey bar in my mouth.
Yeah.
I don't know what they
Sorry, that
put
came out
in those
wrong, but
Mickey
yeah.
bars, but they're really good for what they are.
Oh, have you ever had one that's like super duper frozen? That's like rock hard. Because sometimes, like, if they pull one from the bottom of the tub, it's just like frozen like a rock, and it's the best thing in the world. It breaks your teeth, but it's incredible.
Yeah, I don't often get the Mickey bars. All those,
Are you more of like an ice cream sandwich guy, or like a frozen
a
banana
Dole Whip.
dude?
all those, yeah. Well, I don't get the Dole Whip. I get the
What?
citrus swirl.
Oh, you're a citrus swirl person.
Yeah, citrus swirl float is what I get in Adventureland. Yeah,
fair.
that's one of my go-tos. I mentioned the Night Blossom at Pandora. That's a very sweet slush with passion fruit boba balls. That's very good, and you can get a float of rum on it for $6. The LeFou's brew. I go for the liquidy snacks more when I want to cool off. I don't usually get a.
So
That's fair.
That's actually something I wanted to mention. There is a surprising amount of alcohol at Disney.
Oh yeah, it's very boozy.
Oh, yes.
I did not realize how boozy it was, because when I went the previous two times, I was like 8 and 17 respectively.
Mhm.
So, like, I just like alcohol was not on my radar at all at those ages. And I mean, I still don't drink anyway, but I just did not have. I just wasn't paying attention, and now I see there's like alcohol at like every other stand. I'm like, how much booze are people drinking in this park?
And people love their $8 Bud Lights. I don't know.
Yeah, it's.
I mean,
Or they're slushies with like a shot of rum in them.
yeah. Magic Kingdom was completely dry until New Fantasyland opened in 2012. So like you weren't imagining that if that's
Right.
like what you had. But yeah, they still only serve beer and wine and only in the restaurants, the sit-down restaurants. So Magic Kingdom is still like semi-dry. But
I'm
yeah,
just-
But like,
Yeah, I'm just waiting
Animal
for them
Kingdom
to
is
not do that anymore.
really boozy.
yeah, it feels like
Um,
it's time, especially at Disneyland too.
Mhm.
Like, okay, Epcot I always realized was kind of boozy.
Yeah,
but
you can't
that's
have a Germany
right.
pavilion without beer. That's
Yeah, but like Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom is like should be the least boozy part, because there are animals. You don't want drunk people and animals mixing, right?
you don't want sober people and animals mixing either if you're running a theme park. But
That's true. You just don't want the animals mixing whatsoever. But yeah, that always surprised me. But if it works for them.
yeah, I mean, it's the booze at Disney World is really overpriced, but I do tend to get it fairly often because it's very pleasant to have a buzz at Disney World. It's a nice place to drink because it feels so completely safe. Like
Right.
Yeah.
and you can get everywhere by foot. So like Oga's Cantina obviously is a huge draw at Galaxy's Edge, and they have some fascinating cocktails in there. Did either of you go in there?
Yeah, I went
I
in there.
don't think
I was
so.
kind of underwhelmed.
Really? I mean, I can
Yeah, I
see
don't know.
it is very crowded and kind of there's not the Star Wars atmosphere necessarily that you would want because there's no aliens around.
I mean, that's fine. I don't know. It was probably just too crowded. Like, for reference, my Disney World lounge of choice is Nomad Lounge.
Yeah, Nomad Lounge rules.
It's so chill. It's so nice to get
Yeah.
out of the heat in Animal Kingdom.
They also serve my favorite park beer there, which is the Kungaloosh Spiced Excursion Ale, which is
Okay.
exclusively for Disney World.
Yeah. I think
Interesting.
Disney also, like, their cocktails are not strong, which is a good thing if you're a lightweight like me. But I
Yeah.
think they know what they're doing where, like, they don't want the tourists to get too boozed up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure somebody has run like a whole bunch of regression
Hmm.
models and figured out the optimal amount of booze to serve. Like somebody has
Almost
solved this
certainly.
optimization problem in MATLAB and just like put that like titrate the exact amount of booze to put in the cocktails.
Yeah.
Most of their frozen drinks seem perfectly calibrated so that you know that there's alcohol in there because you paid for it, but it's like the minimal amount.
Yeah. It like the blue milk at our
Yeah.
Galaxy's Edge at Disney World, like obviously at Disneyland they don't put any booze in it, but here they put like 3/4 of an ounce of Bacardi in it, I think. It's like half a shot.
Hmm.
It's like just enough that you're like, oh, there is rum in here, but
Ugh.
nobody's getting
Oh, they have hard blue milk?
Yes. It's $14.
I did not realize that.
Yeah, it's literally
Oh,
just
man.
they pour a 3/4 of an ounce of Bacardi in it, and then they put the normal blue milk on top, and then you have to stir it in with a wooden stick.
Yeah. I remember being really disappointed by boozy Dole Whips.
Yeah, they put rum
I'm
on it
like,
in some places.
yeah, Dole Whip with rum, that sounds fun. And then it's literally just like they put like a shot of rum at the bottom and then put Dole Whip in, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
It's a little
you-
disappointing.
The booze at the stands out in the parks is, yeah, it feels very indifferent. If you go to the full bars like the Nomad Lounge,
Mhm.
or have either of you been to Trader Sam's at the Polynesian
Yes.
Village? Yeah. Like they have actual bartenders there doing actual pours of actual liquor, so it can be a little bit more worth your $15 sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fine for the most part. I want something cold that tastes good.
Hmm.
Like, I really like the brown elephant at Epcot because it's basically just Coke with frozen Coke with like Baileys in it.
Yeah.
It's just simple.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it simple. Keep it reliable.
Yeah.
I think that works well for a park. So the other thing that I wanted to mention about like parks and video games is now literal video game lands being built in parks. So a Nintendo land is set to open in Japan, in Kyoto or Tokyo, I forget, later this year.
Universal in Japan is in Kyoto, I think.
Okay, yeah. So in Kyoto later this year, and in 2023 in Florida, as part of Epic Universe, Universal's new gigantic expansion that's set to be bigger than Islands of Adventure and Studios put together. So one of the lands they're building there is a Nintendo land, and it's all very hush hush right now. We don't even know exactly what's going to be at the one that's opening in Japan later this year. And supposedly the one in Orlando is going to be patterned after the one in Kyoto. But there are rumors about the rides that are going to be there. And the rumors are that there's going to be a Yoshi Dark Ride that's fairly standard. A Mario Kart coaster-ish ride, like that uses animatronics and holographs to make it look like you're moving faster than you actually are. And there's going to be a coaster themed around a Donkey Kong minecart ride, which is such an obvious thing that you wonder why it hasn't been done yet. But the tech that they're going to be using for it is actually super neat, or so the rumor goes. I don't know if you've heard about what they're going to do, but I think the fantasy that everybody has had since they were a kid is a roller coaster that track jumps.
Yeah, I'm looking
Right?
at the concept art of the link that you had that shows the track
Yeah.
jumping. And
And okay,
like, okay, I played Donkey Kong Country a lot, and my track record with the minecarts makes this a little terrifying.
oh yeah, this. I think that's the idea, to make it look kind of terrifying. So for our listeners, the way this is gonna work supposedly, or the thing that Universal has a patent for, is this technology where the roller coaster looks like it's a regular roller coaster on a track, but that track is a completely false track. It does nothing. What actually is going on is that the coaster is on this sort of stilts, and these stilts connect to a less visible track far below the cars, and that's actually the thing the car is on. So if you want to make it look like the coaster's track jumping, you make the false track underneath just disappear, and then it looks like you're jumping through the air, even though you're really still on those stilts.
That is pretty wild.
Yeah. That's going to be such a cool thing if they can pull it off. So I've made mental plans to book a trip to Orlando in 2023 just to ride the Nintendo rides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Slight correction, Universal Studios is in Osaka in Japan, just so.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that correction. Mm-hmm. Osaka, closer to Kyoto than Tokyo, yes, but still not Kyoto. Yeah, so that would that sounds like it's going to be super dope, and it's got me speculating about what else they could build as Nintendo rides, because you've got your coaster, you've got your Kiddie Dark ride, you've got your Thrill track ride. I don't know what you'd call the Mario Kart ride. What else do you think they could throw in there?
Pokemon Simulator ride.
So I actually had the opportunity to see Detective Pikachu in one of those high-tech 4D theaters with the moving seats and the air effects and water effects.
Oh, the 4DX?
Yeah, the 4DX at the Chinese theater in LA.
Cool.
And so that is probably the best way to experience that movie, because when there's this one scene, mild spoilers for the film. There's one scene where Lickitung just straight up licks the main character toe to head, and in that moment, water is just spraying in your face. That's the only way you should experience that film, is the experience of being licked by a Lickitung. And so I think they could do a smaller version of that at the Nintendo Land. The caveat being that Nintendo technically doesn't own Pokemon.
Right.
So there's probably some rights issues involved.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Pokemon company would be willing to share in some of that profit.
I also feel like Pokemon is kind of one of the last outstanding IPs that would have the juice to open its own whole theme park land.
Yes.
A lot of...
Oh, absolutely.
I think one thing that comes to mind with Pokemon is how so many rides now have the gamification aspects, like Smuggler's Run.
Mm-hmm.
And it's super obvious to do some kind of simulator ride where you can catch Pokemon and get some kind of score at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, literally just do Toy Story Mania, but the gun is a Pokeball.
Or you could do...
They sell you some souvenir showing what Pokemon you caught or whatever, because they love doing that too.
Yeah, or you could model it after the Tokyo Disneyland ride, Monsters Inc. Ride and Go Seek, which I have not been to Tokyo Disneyland yet, but that is a ride where you're going through these environments and you have a flashlight and you're trying to locate these monsters that are hiding around the environment, and they're all physical props, and you aim the flashlight at a drawer and a little monster pops out of a drawer. So it's sort of like a shooter ride, but not combative. It's more about discovery, and it seems like it could be a good model for...
That sounds so
definitely.
amazing. I would love to go to Tokyo Disneyland, because that's the place that I think has the most unique rides that aren't in other Disney parks.
I think Disney World might actually have the most, just because Epcot and Animal Kingdom are almost entirely unique rides. But Tokyo Disney Sea is even better than any of our parks, supposedly.
I would love to actually see that one day.
I really want
likelihood of that happening is very low because I don't speak Japanese.
I think I've heard that they're very tourist friendly there. There are enough people who speak English that you can get by.
Yeah, I'm sure the employees have basic English competency, because otherwise they couldn't get people from all over Asia to visit.
Yeah.
So.
When
I went to Disney World last time, I actually got sick and completely lost my voice. So it's possible to navigate a Disney theme park without really speaking. You can point to things.
Mm-hmm.
You can make emphatic
that's-
hand gestures.
That is the one thing that I think Disney does better than most theme parks, is that it's extremely accessible. I was like, I'm sure it's still inconvenient if you're mobility impaired
Right.
compared to like not being mobility impaired, but compared to the rest of reality, if you are disabled in any way, Disney is way more accommodating than real life, which is kind of depressing. But like this, like how accommodating Disney is should probably be the standard everywhere. But like it's surprising how accommodating they are.
Mm-hmm.
Other like Nintendo speculation, I know that Metroid probably is not a big enough property to do that, but like a thrill coaster themed after Metroid seems like an obvious thing to do.
I mean, you could say the same thing about Tron. It's an obscure property, but they're building a giant coaster based on it. So you never know.
That's true.
Yeah. The other thing is they gotta build a Zelda thing. I just don't know what the Zelda thing would be. Like, how do you make a Zelda ride? Would it be like just a regular flat ride with Zelda theming, or how would you make a Zelda ride?
I mean, I would do an old school dark ride, but that's kind of my answer to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they already got the Yoshi one. Otherwise, it'd be like, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, Zelda Dark Ride.
You could do a really cool Zelda dark ride with like going through a temple.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I think that
that could work.
Rise of the Resistance sort of offers a template for what dark rides can be now. And in particular, there's this one sequence sort of late in the ride where you're going through this room on the Star Destroyer where all the guns are firing out into space. And your car has to sort of dash in between these guns that are recoiling and then moving back forward. And it feels very video gamey to me. And like, if you have that kind of freedom that the trackless dark rides to offer, you can sort of recreate a lot of video game style mechanics, maybe to sort of increase the verisimilitude of the experience.
Is there actually control there? Like, do you have to time
There
it
is
yourself? Because that would be really interesting.
It would be. They don't. The problem is, how do you have consequences? Like, you can't just slam a 2-ton turbo laser prop into your tourists, because that would.
I mean, it'd be kind of like Smuggler's Run, where you do things wrong. It's just like a shakier ride, probably.
Yeah, but I mean, the issue is, how do like Smuggler's Run get cheat because it's a simulation? But like, if you're trying to do it in a physical environment, it's sort of how do you do that? They could figure something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Considering how much it breaks down, I don't think they could do that with Rise of the Resistance. But I would love to see them build that kind of interaction into like another dark ride, where maybe it takes one track if you press one button, or another track if you press the other. That kind of thing I think is feasible, but I again don't know how they could pull that off.
Back in the day in Horizons, they let you vote on which ending you would see. I don't know if any of you rode that ride.
It's another ride I wish I could have gone on, but it closed so early.
When was Horizons? When did it close down?
It was only open seasonally through a big chunk of the 90s. I think it officially closed around 98.
I can't remember if I rode Horizons, but I think I was there the last year Horizons was open. I think I might have ridden it.
The last time it operated was January 9th, 1999.
Okay,
then I was there in time for it.
It was a seasonal
closed.
Though.
Yeah, it was closed a lot in the later years.
Yeah, the last 5 years it was only open at Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, then I didn't ride it.
Yeah.
Because it went during the summer.
But it had like very early 80s kind of screen tech, and your car could vote on which ending you got to see. And I'm kind of surprised. I don't think any ride is doing that right now, and it would be really easy to do with a lot of this like more sophisticated simulators.
Yeah.
Let people choose what they see.
You could even build it into Star Tours. Just be like, which of the segments do you want?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting really sick of that Rise of Skywalker segment that it's locked onto right now.
I don't like that very much.
Yeah. I know.
It's fine.
I wish it were the old Star Tours, because the whole point of Star Tours was that it was a tour gone wrong, not that it's like part of the Resistance. I really don't like the new movie that they've associated with it.
Well, I mean, it's a sort of mix and match of several different segments. that you can get.
Except, is it now? It seems like it. When I went last time, all of the segments were a Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, they do
related.
lock it every time that a new movie comes out. It'll probably go back on the random sequence when Rise of Skywalker comes out on DVD.
Also, I think like 90% of the time I've been on that ride, it gives me pod racing.
Yeah, you can roll the same one over and over. There's only 3 mills, I think. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's either pod racing, Hoth, or the Wookiee planet.
I've never seen Hoth. I've seen the Wookiee planet.
Yeah.
It's almost always pod racing. I would like to see Hoth at some point.
Yeah, the Hoth one is pretty fun.
This one, they just really wanted to show off Lando. So Lando's there, and Lando.
Like, we got Billy D.
Like, I mean, I love Billy. I love me some Billy D. Williams, but I don't care about this version. I want my Vacation Gone Wrong segment back.
Yeah. I mean, I would love if they could get Rex back in there on one of the simulators, and then you can just choose classic flavor. But alas.
It'd be cool if they did like new updated versions of some of the original scenes and had that be an option.
Yeah, like going through the comet.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that one.
Or like none of the endings can match the fun of the ending, the original ending, where you're like rocketing towards the fuel tanker and think you're
right. And they had the guy that people thought was George Lucas making a cameo, but was just a guy.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I'm trying to think of what other Nintendo properties could be made into video games. And like,
rides.
I think the obvious one is F-Zero, but they already have a Mario Kart, so I don't think they're gonna do that. And like beyond that is obscure properties. I just don't know how they'd make video games out of. Like, how do you make a Pikmin video game or a Xenoblade video game? You know what I mean?
I'm trying to think of
Sorry, Xenoblade Ride.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what an Animal Crossing ride would be like.
It's a small.
I think that would just be like the Winnie the Pooh retheming of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. That's basically an Animal Crossing.
Where
ride.
Tom Nook chases you down.
That would be the most terrifying ride ever. Oh my god! Just like being pursued by a debt collector. I think that's the one ride that would be scarier for adults than for children. But yeah, that would be good. What other properties do they have?
Smash Brothers?
Yeah, that's like all of their properties. I guess they have Kirby. Again, I don't know how you make a ride out of that.
I could see like Kirby Air Ride, but it's a ride.
It could be like you're in a Kirby ride vehicle, sort of like how the Ratatouille ride, you're in a rat somehow, and then as you take on different powers and abilities, like the ride experience changes.
Oh, you know what would be so cool? If they have it like a flume ride, but at one point in the flume ride, you get like pulled into the Kirby's mouth and then spat back out.
Yeah, they could do that.
At a high speed. That would be really cool. It's probably technically infeasible, but I still want it to happen. Yeah, they have so many properties that they could turn into rides. And I'll be interested. It'll probably be just 3 or 4 rides when it opens. But
yeah,
I'll be interested to see the reports coming out of Osaka once it finally opens later this year.
Because it is one of only 4 lands at Epic Universe. Like that's going to be really fascinating to watch over the next few years because it's the biggest project to come to Orlando since the construction of Islands of Adventure 20 years ago. Like there's a lot going on down there.
You drive by it on the way from the Orlando airport to Disney World, and you can see just like a vast expanse of empty land with backhoes and bulldozers everywhere right now. You can't see any buildings yet because it's in extremely early stages of development. I think right now they're just kind of like landscaping for future construction. Yeah,
like they're probably building the berm right now and just sort of doing the surveying.
Yeah. It's ambitious to think that this will be opened in 3 years.
I don't know if that's going
to do it that fast.
Pan out. But I mean, Universal does tend to get a move on faster than Disney does. Disney's construction projects tend to take like a really long time, like above industry standard.
Yeah, they've gotten faster about it. I've definitely noticed that. Like, I think what I heard was the executives were so displeased about how long Pandora took that they made it a priority for their construction projects to speed up.
Yeah, but at the same time, you still got like Guardians has been under construction for 2 years and will take 2 more, and
Right. But like
Like,
Pandora took what? That
I think
was,
it's 5 years from acquisition to opening.
I think, yeah, it was a really long
That's
time.
less time than Avatar 2 took.
That's true. Like they were, I think they were originally worried like, oh no, it's gonna open years after Avatar 2. Nobody's gonna be hyped for it anymore, and then
And
it
now they
opened
have the
5
opposite
years
problem.
earlier than
Avatar
Avatar 2.
is so far away.
No, I think so. This is saying their original plan was 5 years, and it took 6 years from construction to building, from announcing it to finishing it.
Yeah. I'm seeing here, it looks like the groundbreaking ceremony was January 2014, and then it opened May 2017, I believe. So the actual
Right.
construction didn't take that long, but it took them a long time to design it, I guess.
Right.
And you can see how, like, you can see it in the way that it's all put together. It's very, very well designed, even compared to other parts of the park.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah,
has a
Animal
lot of
Kingdom,
intricacy.
like the way that they blended the real plants and the fake plants always kind of blows my mind because you can never really tell which is which, except for ones that are like obviously fantastical.
Yeah. Like, obviously, most of what's in Pandora is artificial, aside from some of the trees. But they've put it together really, really well.
Yeah.
And so Tereglith mentioned that they're opening 3 other lands at Epic Universe. And those are a land themed after Universal Classic Monsters. None of this is completely official, by the way, aside from the Nintendo one. So a land themed after Universal's classic monsters, so like your Draculas and your Frankensteins. Then a land themed after How to Train Your Dragon, which I'm surprised doesn't really exist yet. And another Harry Potter themed world, this one themed after Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
Although
That's the
These
rumor.
There
are
are some-
some. These are some choices. I
Yeah.
I don't.
So
I
I
don't
understand
know.
How to Train Your Dragon,
I love the
and
idea.
the other 2 are just completely baffling to me.
What?
So I was saying that, like, How to Train Your Dragon makes sense, but, like, classic monsters, Fantastic Beasts, really?
Oh, I love the idea of the Classic Monsters land because clearly they are enduring characters. And since the Dark Universe failed so utterly, I think the original pitch back when they were first, like in the early stages of this was going to be a Dark Universe land. You were going to see all your favorite
Can you
Johnny Depp's
imagine?
Invisible Man.
Arrive for the Dooku, the Dark Universe
Yeah.
Cinematic Universe.
But I think because of the utter failure of that, it's now going to be sort of just more of a distillation of the Classic Monsters aesthetic, which is enduring
That's going to
aesthetic.
be so
And
disappointed.
so I think that it's a very smart thing to base them on because it is IP that they have, but it's not tied to, like, it's not going to become dated. Like, you're not going to be like, Javier Bardem was Frankenstein, really? In 20 years. But yeah, that's the one that I think is most sort of canny of them. How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, okay. You've convinced me that it's a weird idea, but it's not an idea that's going to seem stupid in retrospect. Fantastic Beasts, though. What the hell?
Well,
They already have
I
a Harry
mean,
Potter
the-
land. They have 2 Harry Potter lands.
The thing that comes to mind for Fantastic Beasts is it might work better as a theme park land than as a movie.
that's true.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel that way about Avatar,
That's-
actually.
Mm-hmm.
Better.
That is
Like,
also
I think
true.
Flight of Passage is a better Avatar movie than Avatar is.
So I think what people want is not really the plot of Fantastic Beast. I don't know. I didn't watch the movies because I haven't heard great things about them. I think what people really want is not the plot. They want to exist in Wizarding World.
Mm-hmm.
So they could deliver
But
on
they already have a Wizarding
what?
World.
Yeah.
Aren't they kind of cannibalizing their own Wizarding World? So they have an English Wizarding World, and now they're going to open a French Wizarding World? Like, I don't understand the logic.
Well, I think it would be an American one because that's what the first movie was. But the other rumor is that they've maybe gotten cold feet over this because of the like kind of lackluster performance of Crimes of Grindelwald, and that they may like instead trot out plans for a Ministry of Magic area that they had been thinking about previously.
Yeah.
That's a weird choice.
So it seems like what I'm reading now in this article is the rumor is French Ministry of Magic, apparently, or something like that.
That's weirdly high concept.
Yeah, it's going to be Parisian streets and French Ministry of Magic. Because the first movie, I think, is in the States, and the second movie's in Paris.
Oh, maybe I didn't see the second one.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I guess the English.
I haven't seen either.
Yeah, the English Ministry of Magic would be problematic because that's in London, and they already have replicated London for the Diagon Alley area. Right. Walk in from the London street.
So that's why they're doing Paris here, apparently. That's the rumor, but who knows what it would be.
Yeah.
I could see a Ministry of Magic ride really working well. Mm-hmm. It's just it's too much Harry Potter. You know?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at these plans and I'm thinking of like Animal Kingdom when it was going to have Beastly Kingdom as part of it, or like the original New Fantasyland that was going to have Pixie Hollow as a big subworld.
Yeah.
I don't even know what Pixie Hollow is.
It was their Tinkerbell property that they had at the time. It was going to be a major part of New Fantasyland in some of the early plans that were leaked.
There's a tiny little meet and greet area themed after it at Disneyland's Fantasyland, and that's it now.
Right.
Yeah.
But like Disney, Disney theme park plans have had a lot of things that get cut pretty early on. So you see something like Fantastic Beasts, it's like, are they really going to go through with that? That could easily end up on the chopping floor.
Oh, yeah. That's, I'm guessing these things are a lot more set in stone now because they're in the process of construction. But I'm also guessing that we do not have the full picture at the moment.
Beastly Kingdom made it to the point where they were still going to open it, and it was on all the signs at Animal Kingdom.
Oh, wow.
Did you? Yeah.
You can still see benches that have the logo with the dragon right in the center, where that was going to be the representation of Beastly Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they stop it?
So
what happened?
The people working on it actually left to do Islands of Adventure. And also, Animal Kingdom went over budget, so they were going to do Beastly Kingdom later, so they put it off. And some of the key people working on it got frustrated and defected to Universal. So the story goes.
There are reports that there was some budget chicanery going on where they knew that they were never going to build Beastly Kingdom, but they told the suits they were so they could get more money for the rest of the park, possibly. It's all...
Oh, Hollywood accounting.
Yeah.
But yeah, the descriptions of the rides for Beastly Kingdom sound pretty wild. Apparently they were going to have a hedge maze where you could encounter a unicorn who would talk to you telepathically, and they would achieve this by sending vibrations up through your feet so that you would hear them in your head. I don't know about all that.
What the hell?
Some of the Disney concepts are really wild and probably never would have worked. My favorite one is the version of...
the original vision for Epcot.
My favorite version is probably Tomorrowland 2099. If you've heard of that.
No, I haven't heard of that.
Their concept for Tomorrowland was that aliens had landed inside of Disney World, and it was all this weird alien tech had just descended into the theme park. And there were going to be alien walk-arounds and all of this and all of the rides and shops and things were going to be operated by the aliens, almost like Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, I wonder if some of those ideas stuck around and made it into Galaxy's Edge.
I think so.
And then also got watered down there too.
Yeah, one of the planned rides was a shooting gallery dark ride, which eventually became Buzz Lightyear.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense. There are aliens in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there are lots of potential ways they could integrate more video gamey elements into these parks and more game theming. Super excited to see what they do with Nintendo Land.
Yeah,
and the other
rumor about Nintendo Land that I've seen is that So the original pitch for Galaxy's Edge was that it would almost function like an open world video game where you would have a reputation score that was tracked throughout the land, and that would impact how cast members interacted with you. And that never came to pass. But the rumors that they might do something similar.
For privacy reasons, I'm guessing.
I don't think Disney cares about privacy reasons.
Yeah.
I'm guessing privacy reasons in the legal sense, not in Disney caring about them.
Oh, I mean, they have the bare bones of it now, where like it can at Disney World anyway, it can read your Magic Band and it can tell how well you've done on Smuggler's Run, like if you've got a lot of credits or if you didn't get very many credits. But then what they never did was make the jump to like I've only had one instance where a cast member somehow like knew that I had like gotten a bad score on the ride, and they're like, "Oh, you crashed up the ship, huh?" But like originally that was going to be a bigger part of it, and it was going to be like you would go to the cantina and they'd be like, "I don't know if I can sell you a drink. Hondo's got a bounty out on you." And
I mean, I'm guessing they almost certainly got cold feet over someone actually getting offended by being treated badly, because the one thing Disney does not want to do is have some guest randomly get offended.
So, again, don't want to spoil it, but they completely throw that out the window for Rise of the Resistance.
Oh, yeah?
It's the one place in the park where people are deliberately rude to you.
yes, the First Order cast members are having a lot of fun.
I was so... Like, they expect you to kind of go along with it, and I just thought it was hilarious. And I could see them getting visibly annoyed because I couldn't stop laughing.
Yeah, they also do that actually at the 50s Primetime Cafe, where the whole shtick is that the waitress is like your hectoring mother from the 50s sitcom.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's like the Haunted Mansion where they're very dour.
Yeah, so they have some fun with cast demeanor. I think it was just
That's
like
true.
there's so much that was cut from Galaxy's Edge. I mean, there's so much that's there, but there's so much that was cut as well that I think that was one of the first things to go, just because it was so technically like difficult in order to work out. Like it all sort of remains vestigially, but it's all in the app, and like you have to be actively using the app in order to tap into any of that sort of open world video game style stuff. Like there's a mini game where you can hack into control panels around the land, but they don't actually do anything, which is kind of a disappointment, because it was supposed to be like the Harry Potter wands at Universal, where you stand in a spot and you move the wand and it triggers an actual effect in the land. That doesn't happen at Galaxy's Edge.
I think they're also running up the limitation of people's phone batteries, because your battery will drain like mad.
Yeah, I always bring a battery pack when I go.
Yeah, so even with a backup charger, I get to like 50% on the backup charger whenever I'm there. So there's a limit to how much you can do this interactivity until they roll out phones that have, 24-hour battery life.
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of a problem to have these kind of interactive elements. That's why part of the reason why they have the RFID Magic Bands, but then the only people who have Magic Bands are the people who are staying at the park resorts, and they have lots of visitors who are staying elsewhere.
Well, you get one as an AP as well. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like a lot of
like,
people
are
have
just
Magic
making
Bands.
Yeah, you can buy them as a standalone product as well. They're just not that useful.
So if you stay in so they have Disney resorts and non-Disney resorts on the property.
Right.
If you stay in a non-Disney resort, then you don't get a Magic Band.
Yeah, and you can buy one for $20, I think.
Yeah.
It's really, but if you're staying at a resort, you can use them to charge stuff to your room, so that's really handy. But if you're not, then it's just like your ticket, and you can redeem fast passes with it. But they are gradually introducing more things. Like, did either of you do the Pirates Adventure of the Seven Seas at Adventureland?
No.
No, I didn't do any of the interactive stuff.
Okay, that one is probably the coolest interactive thing. It's essentially a scavenger hunt around Adventureland, where you are given a physical paper map, and then you are tasked with going to locate these various items that are around Adventureland that just look like part of the set dressing. And you hold your Magic Band against a little symbol, like a ship's wheel or a skull or something, and it triggers a physical effect in the land, and then you get given your next clue, and you move on, and it has like...
That's cool.
Yeah, and at the end you get a fast pass for Pirates of the Caribbean, so it's almost like a virtual queue for Pirates of the Caribbean, where you're just sort of out and about playing with these things instead of waiting in a line. So I really wish they would do more stuff like that.
That is a smart thing to do, especially if because it makes people invest the time in it, and so not everybody's going to go ahead and go through the whole rigmarole. So that's kind of a way to kind of ration fast passes.
Yeah.
It all works together really well. Now, sort of moving on to actual video games, there's a whole genre of games starting with Roller Coaster Tycoon back in the mid-90s that try to simulate the experience of running a theme park. And so then later you come, there's Bullfrog and there's Sim Theme Park, which is not a great game. And more recently, Planet Coaster and Parkitect. And there are also other games along those lines that simulate other kinds of parks, like Zoo Tycoon, Planet Zoo, very recently Jurassic World Evolution. And they're interesting because they simulate some parts of a theme park really well and other parts not so well. So one of the interesting things is I don't know if I know Tereglith, you said your only experience with the genre was playing the old Legoland game.
Yes, that was the only time that I ever did that.
Yeah, I'd completely forgotten that game existed. But I was starting to it jogged my memory. Do you guys remember old Scholastic book order forms?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was one of the games that was featured in those. So I remember that from my youth. By the way, the only game I ever managed to get my parents to buy me through Scholastic book orders was SimCity 2000. And I got them to buy it for me by convincing them that it would teach me to become a more logical person.
That's a good choice of game.
Yeah, it didn't convince me to become a more logical person. It convinced me that you could beam microwave radiation from satellites that were orbiting the sun, and that could power a city.
Well, it has been tried.
It's nearly 2028, and we don't have that technology yet, so 8 years for SimCity 2000 not to be a lie. Anyway, so one thing that I think these games kind of capture that you might not think about is they actually have you care about park labor. So you actually a lot of them you have to hire janitors, you have to hire security, you have to hire entertainers. Parkitect, the one that I was playing last night, and why I went to sleep super late, actually has you create backstage areas for all the all the merchandise that needs to be brought to shops.
Oh, that's really cool.
And has you create backstage paths for all the employees, but you can't have the backstage paths within view of the guests because guests don't want to think about the labor involved in keeping a park.
Can you add utilidors?
What do you mean by utilidors?
So utilidor is the proprietary portmanteau of utility and corridor that refers to the tunnels that are underneath Magic Kingdom.
Yes, the whole point is to build utilidors.
Oh, so it's not just
so you can do
it's underground.
So you can do both. You can do just utility paths that are hidden and you hide them using fences, or you can build the paths underground, or you can build an underground mail tube system that shoots packages from distribution depots to stores.
Oh, that's fun.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and a lot of people find this feature really annoying, and I admit that it is a little annoying, but it also makes you think about, actually running a park isn't just putting stalls in the right places and then building cool rides. There's a whole backstage part of running a park that you just don't normally see. So I'm really, I'm really enthralled by Parkitect. I'm getting Roller Coaster Tycoon vibes. Roller Coaster Tycoon was probably the game I played most as a kid.
Yeah.
It's probably why I love theme parks so much as an adult.
Yeah, I actually went on the Keys to the Kingdom tour at Magic Kingdom last year, and that gave me a whole new appreciation for that aspect of it, because they take you around backstage. You see where they stage the parades from. You see where the garbage all goes through the pneumatic tubes. It's really fascinating stuff. So it's interesting that the game is addressing it in that way.
Yeah, I didn't know
Yeah.
Parkitect had that aspect, and that makes me want to play it more.
It's basically a slightly more complicated version of Roller Coaster Tycoon with slightly more flexible building tools, and it's a lot easier to work with than Planet Coaster. So you can't build like the creations of their wildest imagination that you could build in Planet Coaster. But Planet Coaster's tools are also extremely hard to use. So Parkitect, I think, is a nice evolution of the Roller Coaster Tycoon formula that doesn't require you to play the garbage fire that was Roller Coaster Tycoon World.
Yeah, back in the day, I was actually kind of disappointed in Roller Coaster Tycoon because the original theme park, was my absolute jam. That was my game.
Oh, wow.
And Roller Coaster Tycoon came out, and it was cool, but had such an emphasis on building roller coasters. And as a Disney person, big, huge roller coasters were not what I thought of as a theme park.
Yeah, you want elaborately themed dark rides.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I hoped a new theme park simulator would be like. And Roller Coaster Tycoon was so roller coaster centric. And I just got bored with building roller coasters. And I know that's the draw for a lot of people.
Yeah, but it's like you don't want to build a Six Flags, you want to build Disneyland.
Right. And you can't really do that in the original Roller Coaster Tycoon. It's very much comes out like a Six Flags, big roller coasters, and like an asphalt lot park.
Yeah, you build to the point that they partnered with Six Flags for Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, which is ironic because in Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 they have more of those kinds of dark rides, and you can build your own tracks and stuff like that. And there's a lot more integration with scenery than was in the first Roller Coaster Tycoon. So you can build something more like Disney, but they're partnering with Six Flags.
Yeah, like the original theme park had the option to build like a giant lazy river all around your park. And I always thought ideas like that were really cool.
Oh, you can do that in the original Roller Coaster Tycoon. It's just difficult.
Yeah, I don't remember. Maybe you could.
You can, it's just not the most convenient thing to do, but it's feasible. Actually, let me qualify that. You can make it with bumper boats.
Okay.
And you can kind of make something that goes around your park. I think there's a lazy river in RCT 2 or 3. I'd have to check that out. There definitely is one on Planet Coaster, I want to say. It's been a while since I've played Planet Coaster. But yeah, Parkitect allows you to kind of... it's much more in the vein of Roller Coaster Tycoon, not theme park, which is, I know, your jam. But it does have the ability to... It does have all the scenery tools from Roller Coaster Tycoon 2.
That's cool.
So you can build kind of more Disney-ish things. But yeah, it's nice for that, like, video games are actually thinking about not just, building super cool attractions. Because I think that was more like Theme Park and Theme Park 2's jam.
Somewhat.
Like, you don't think as much about labor and stuff like that.
The
building
original
rides in those games.
The original theme park did have labor. Labor and path placement were fairly important. It didn't have a backstage at all.
I mean, I did Roller Coaster Tycoon. I guess there's a lot less flexibility in ride construction.
Yes.
Which is the advantage that Roller Coaster Tycoon always had.
Do you have to worry about capacity in any of these? Like ride capacity per hour?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to worry about both park capacity and ride capacity. People complain if the park gets too crowded.
Yeah.
They complain if queue lines are too long. And if you don't have enough, if the ride capacity isn't enough and a ride gets too popular, then people get disappointed that they can't ride the ride.
Yeah. That's happening a lot at the real life Disney World right now because they haven't been building enough for the last couple decades.
Yeah. I know the original theme park, I think Roller Coaster Tycoon also had this, but the original theme park, if they couldn't get food or drinks or use the restroom because they were too crowded.
Oh yeah,
they get really upset.
the funny thing to do, because this is a game originally made by a British developer, you can charge to use the bathroom,
Oh,
like they do throughout a lot of London.
What?
S-
Yeah.
So you can see people like running around clutching their groins, but not wanting to pay to use the bathroom. It's the funniest thing in the world.
how sadistic.
One of my favorite things to do in the original theme park was they had sliders on some of the shops, so you could jack up the amount of caffeine in the coffee,
Oh
and
yeah, I remember
people
that.
would run around like crazy. And you could like increase the amount of salt in the fries to try to get people to buy more drinks.
Oh yeah, I remember that you could up like the flavor content or
Hmm.
something of like the burgers, and it would make the burgers more expensive,
Hmm.
but people would like the burgers more,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, you could increase the amount of ice in the soda, which would disappoint people, but then you would make more profit from the soda.
Did it also help? Like, I forget if Theme Park World had a weather system. Did it actually help you if you were in a place with a lot of like hot weather that you put more ice in the
I
drinks?
don't remember. Theme park, the very original theme park had different locations you could go to, and I
Oh,
think there
okay.
was some weather involved.
Because I know that Roller Coaster
Hmm.
Tycoon has a complete weather
Right.
system, so people's preferences change depending on the
Hmm.
temperature, which I think is super cool. What's really impressive about the original Roller Coaster Tycoon is that the entire thing was coded in assembly.
Right.
Well,
So like really low, like a
That
really,
is
really low level
just
language.
madness.
yeah, that's,
Oh yeah, Chris Sawyer is a complete nutset.
I can't even
I mean,
imagine.
not in a bad way, but just like to take that ambitious of a project and say, I'm gonna do this at basically machine level code. Um, that is incredible, and that's why it could run so well.
Hmm.
yeah, fully optimized. Uh,
Yeah.
so my one contribution to this area, as I mentioned, I played the Legoland game, which was essentially Lego Interactive ripping off Roller Coaster Tycoon back in the year 2000. Um, so I don't remember that much about the gameplay, but there was once a place at Disney World where you could virtually design your own roller coaster as in a video game esque
Yes.
designer. Yes, I'm sure like you remember this as a historian of Epcot.
Yeah, and you would do like a little simulator pod,
Hmm.
and
It
it
was
always had a
Well,
crazy long line because it had like no capacity,
yeah, the
whatever.
capacity was like 30 people an hour,
Hmm.
but it was
when did this close down?
uh, more recently than you would think. It was called the
Yeah,
Okay,
Sum of All Thrills, sponsored by Raytheon.
and
that sounds
it was
accurate.
it was based off of the virtual Space Mountain that was at DisneyQuest.
Yes, Disney Quest had
Yeah.
this for until it closed down. So let's see, the Sum of All Thrills opened in 2009 and closed
I
in
don't know what Disney Quest
2016.
is.
Well, I thought that was there longer. It felt like it was there for
Well, I mean, the
maybe
Disney
not.
Quest one was there from opening, I believe.
Right. Right. I only went to Disney Quest like twice because Disney Quest was not good.
Yeah, Disney Quest. That's a whole topic that we maybe should have mentioned earlier. But Disney Quest was Disney's
Right.
attempt to make an indoor theme park consisting entirely of video games.
Yeah. So the thing about a theme park based entirely off of video games is you have to update them more than once a decade.
Uh huh. And that is
Yeah.
something they were not equipped to do.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so apparently they only built two locations, one in Chicago that only lasted 3 years, and then one in Walt Disney World itself, which seems stupid because why would you go to the virtual one if you're already in the real
Well,
one?
it was at Disney Springs at the time, downtown Disney, and the ticket was cheaper. So it was like for locals whose kids were like, I want to go to Disney for my birthday. And the parents were like, okay, we can do Disney Quest because it's a third of the price.
And like
I know this because this happened to my sister. That's why I went to Disney Quest, is because she had a
Mhm.
birthday there.
and
Okay, this must have existed um, the second time I went to Disney World and we went to Disney Springs and that was there, but we didn't have time to do it. And it was also not in our ticket price, so I couldn't
yeah.
go. I didn't want to pay like $40 or
Yeah,
whatever.
I think it was
Right.
about
it costed.
Like, part of the reason it lasted so long was because it was this enormous 5-story building right at the end of what was then Downtown Disney, and no one wanted to lease it from them.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
they
also,
just,
Now what do they have
it was
there?
a windowless building that was
Right.
5 stories tall, so they had to just knock it down because nobody wants to be in a 5 story tall windowless building if you're a normal business.
like, they couldn't use
So
it for
what do they have
anything.
there now?
The NBA experience is there, I
Yes,
think.
which is such a flop
Okay.
that they may have wished they kept DisneyQuest around. Nobody's ever there.
So I'm reading the Wikipedia article right now, and they're gonna build one in Toronto, but then they canceled it because so having grown up in Canada, not in Toronto, elsewhere in the country, Disney has so much less of a cultural presence in Canada than the United States. Like, it's still there. Everybody watches Disney movies or whatever. But it's so much less pervasive in Canada. Like, we don't have Disney Channel up there. So kids in the States who grew up with, like, Lizzie McGuire and, like, Disney Channel original movies, that just did not exist up there. So to make that push into Toronto would be huge for Disney as far as capturing the Canadian market. And it's a little bit surprising. I mean, not surprising given the failure of DisneyQuest, but you'd think they'd want more penetration to capture that 40 million market, and they're just not doing
Well,
it.
and also it makes a certain degree of sense that they would have opened one in Chicago as well, because that's a way to get theme park money from places where you can't open a theme park because it's too cold. Like, the reason that they're in SoCal and Florida is because it never snows here.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
It's part of the reason why they have
there
a
are-
big flagship Disney store in New York City, because they would dearly love to have like a New York City presence.
Yeah.
But you can't
Yeah,
open a
the
theme
problem
park
with-
there.
Yeah.
I mean, you can,
Legoland
you
is
just can't
trying
operate
to
it
open one in New
year-round.
York, but
Right.
I don't know about that.
like, so we have, like, up in Canada, we have two big theme parks. There's another smaller one in Vancouver. So there's Canada's Wonderland, just north of Toronto, and there's La Ronde, which is in Montreal. But they can only operate seasonally. So they operate, like, from, I would say, late April to early November is probably the operating season. And so that's money that you just can't be earning for roughly 5 months of the year.
Yeah.
Yep.
And for an operation like Disney, they don't, like, they want to earn money every single day.
Yeah. So that's why you can't have that presence up north. I get
Right.
it. But it's like, it's feasible to do. Like, Wonderland and La Ronde make money hand over fist.
hmm
But
Yeah.
like,
I mean, DisneyQuest
it's
as a windowless building could have, like, in theory, could have operated all year round, but clearly it had broader issues.
yeah, I mean, they have, like, crappy versions of that in Canada. So Toronto, I think Mississauga actually has this big indoor theme park called Palladium. Might have closed down. I don't know. I'm not from Toronto, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. So those kinds of things exist. It's just they have a reputation for being kind of crappy. They're like places you go, like places that offices go for team building exercises when they want to be cheap, or where you take a young teenager for a birthday.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you say the
Right.
crappy version as if DisneyQuest was not itself a crappy version of itself.
Yeah, I think if they really want to pour money into it, they could make a good version of this, where you have, like, you know, go-karts but not crappy, and you have, like, a rock climbing wall but cool.
Oh, that wasn't. They didn't even have those kind of things at DisneyQuest. Like, the most physical thing that they had was a bumper car arena where you could shoot balls at the other bumper cars. But even that was so tiny that it was like you couldn't even maneuver around barely. It was like maybe like the size of half a tennis court, and yeah. Other than that, it was all just
The
like,
size of half a tennis
yeah. It
court.
was so
It was
small.
tiny.
Yeah.
That could fit, like, 3 bumper cars.
Yeah. So
It was-
again, that was another thing where there was so long a line.
That is, like, that is quite possibly, and I don't say this lightly, the stupidest idea for a ride that I've ever heard.
Like, you really had to experience it because it was like Disney tried to open up a Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes.
It was so bizarre.
just like fuck.
They did,
Like Chuck E. Cheese, or like the Ottawa area equivalent where I grew up, which is Cosmic Adventures. Like that makes sense. I fucking loved Cosmic Adventures as a kid, but like,
but I mean, a Chuck E. Cheese.
you gotta like go whole hog on that. You know, you can't make like shitty tiny versions or virtual reality versions of better Disney rides. You have to like be committed to making an indoor theme park.
Yeah, I will say I do want to shout out the one good game at DisneyQuest, as I remember it, was I think probably the latest thing they put in, because after a certain point they just gave up. They just stopped putting in new things there. So like you would go and it felt like you were stepping back into 1997. But the one modern-ish thing was a Pirates of the Caribbean virtual reality thing. And that was made in like 2004-ish maybe, and it had those same guns as Toy Story Mania, actually, where you pull on the string and you were aiming them all around. And it was sort of like Smuggler's Run in that you had 6 people standing on this boat deck and one person was steering and everybody else was shooting. And it actually felt like almost like a more successful version of both Smuggler's Run and Toy Story Mania, because you were actually maneuvering freely around this whole map, and you could pull up next to other pirate ships and shoot at them, and the damage happened in real time. And then at the end, you had a boss battle with this ghost ship that flew beside you, and then you got treasure at the end, and it was really fun, and it like sort of showed the potential more. But then DisneyQuest closed a decade later, and it is gone now.
That sounds so cool.
Yeah, it really was cool. And it was,
and I guess I can see why VR doesn't have the sort of public cachet that it used to have back in the day, because now you can buy a VR headset and play video games in the comfort of your living room. But there's still these kinds of experiences that you can't put in your living room.
Yeah.
And I wish that, these hadn't gone the way of the dinosaur. Or the way of the good dinosaur, which is also another property that's been memory holed at Disney.
Well, I mean, I think the replacement now is sort of the Void, which I don't know if either of you have ever done that.
No, I keep meaning to.
It's really...
Is the Void also at Disney Springs?
They have one there, yeah. And it's...
So what is that exactly? It's also a VR experience.
Yeah, it's VR in a physical environment. And you put on your headset and you can see your team members. So the one that I've done is the Star Wars experience, Shadows of the Empire. And you are a rebel in disguise as a stormtrooper, and you can see your compatriots dressed up as stormtroopers as well. It's a group of 4, up to 4. I went just with my dad, so it was the 2 of us. And you walk through these environments, and the things that you see in the virtual reality are replicated physically with props. So like if you see a button, you can reach out and press the button with your real hand, and it'll do something. Yeah, and like...
So it's like VR. So it's like VR layered on top of physical things, or is it more like AR?
It's VR layered on top of physical things. You cannot see out of the helmet. So everything, I assume, if you looked at it, would be completely unthemed. It would just be like a gray box with a button on it. But in your eyes, it looks like you are seeing a virtual vision that matches the dimensions of it, that looks like a Star Wars console. And you can...
So, you know what this reminds me of? Have any of you played, probably you haven't, the video game Judgment?
I have not.
No.
Okay. So in that game, one of the things you can do, one of the side activities you can do, is this VR experience called Dice and Cube. It's not like an actual VR headset experience. It's an in-game VR experience. You know what I mean? It's like the characters doing the VR. And what that is it's the same sort of thing where the character would be walking through the physical world, but the physical world is like almost a Mario Party-esque board game. So they're playing that in VR.
Huh.
So it's a bit like that. It's a bit like The Void, but with Mario Party, except for instead of mini games, it's the game's combat mechanics. So you're like doing karate in VR.
Has the Void concept been successful for them?
I think so. They're expanding locations. Like,
that's cool.
The Void is a separate company, and apparently they're sinking a lot of money into like a a weird like themed boutique experience in Utah where it's going to be like a replicating an Old West town with perfect verisimilitude, like Westworld almost. But so I don't know how that's going to turn out for him. But the Void thing seems
Yeah.
yeah, it's very
In
neat.
Utah.
And like all the Void experiences are sort of packed into a room that's like no bigger than a bedroom, because it's like they play with your perception of space by having you like double back and walk through, and like you can look out onto something that looks like a huge vista, and of course in reality you're just pointing straight at a wall, but you don't know that. So it is kind of a fascinating blend of like taking VR and bringing it to the next level by doing something that you can't just do at your house with an HTC Vive.
How do they prevent you from walking into walls?
There are generally railings that are in existence in the virtual world and in the physical world. And in real life, the railing is like 2 feet away from a wall. But in the game, it looks like you're looking out over a lava field or something.
Oh, okay. That works.
Yeah. And they also have haptic feedback where you put on a vest and you can feel like if you get shot at in the Star Wars one, you feel like a bump on your chest and it like heats up when you're in front of the lava. You can smell like burning smells. It's set on VR.
That is so
That's
cool.
really neat. I need to do this sometime.
More of that. You know,
Yeah,
I hope they open one in New York.
Yeah, it's in most
That
major
would be
cities.
great.
So you can definitely seek it out.
Okay, I'm surprised if they don't have one in Boston because we're like the nerd haven.
New York just has one of everything.
You're right.
At least. So.
And we
I should
usually
probably
get
be able to find
things
it.
like 5 years after New York does.
Yeah, which is nice. Sorry, it's not nice
No,
for you.
it's actually
nice
pretty
to be,
nice.
Yeah, they've got, looks like
No,
they have
like-
5 California locations, so I think they're probably West Coast based. So that's why they're maybe a little slow to expand on the East Coast.
Yeah, like I'm hoping it comes soon because this is so much nicer than growing up in, from the perspective of getting stuff soon. It's so much nicer than growing up in Ottawa, which is a weird market that doesn't get anything because it's not like it's too small a market. It's still, 1.4 million people about. The problem is that it's a bilingual market, so you'd have to prepare French materials, and nobody wants to invest in preparing 2 languages worth of materials for everything. So we get a lot of weird Quebec stuff opening up in Ottawa that doesn't open elsewhere in the country. And there's no like iconic Quebecois cartoon studios, so we don't get Disney anything at Ottawa. So yeah, it's nice being in New York and just getting stuff.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, I live in a small town in Central Florida, so generally speaking, if something is near enough to me to drive to it, it is probably at Disney World because that's the only place that has like the pull to get things like the Void or like the 120 FPS Gemini Man that I got to see there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Boston, we
it'll
tend to be
nice.
like the second location of a lot of things that open in New York first. So it's like,
Yeah,
well,
because after New York, they're going to go to Philly or Boston, right?
yeah, or like
One
DC
of
if
the
they're going in that direction. But it's
Oh, yeah.
like second, third, it's like if they're expanding out from New York, a lot of times they'll come to Boston because we're one of the bigger markets that's close.
Makes sense. Huge suburbs out there, so huge market. Yeah, anything else you folks wanted to mention about VR park simulator stuff?
I just recalled that the roller coaster designer at DisneyQuest was hosted by Bill Nye, so that was fun.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking right now, and apparently Cyberspace Mountain was also at DisneyQuest.
Yeah.
Yes. That was one of the more
Okay.
worthwhile things to do at DisneyQuest.
Yes,
Okay.
which is a low bar.
Who called himself Bill Nye the Coaster Guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. They sort of have the flavor of that test track where you quote unquote design your own vehicle that virtually races against the actual test track vehicle.
Yeah, that's one where I
Yeah.
wish it was more integrated because it doesn't actually impact your ride experience at all.
Yeah, it doesn't do
Yeah.
anything. Which is probably good
I
for
wish
me
it were
because
more.
I always build like the stupidest thing.
Yeah. The biggest full
I always-
SUV with giant tires sticking out the sides. That's what I like to go for.
Yeah, I usually build like a little smart car with enormous tires and spoilers on
Yeah.
it.
What would that even drive
I
like
don't know.
in real life?
The stats I get are always like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. It is possible to go into the negatives on efficiency if you really try.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? I've never tried. I've been on that ride 3 times, but I never tried to like screw around.
Yeah, I mean that does sort of bring in the whole subgenre of post-ride Epcot video games, which are almost always like embarrassing and outdated. Like they have them at
They've
Test
gotten
Drive.
rid of so many of
Yeah,
those.
they
though,
still have them
right?
at Test Drive. They still have them at Spaceship Earth. The Kodak Imageworks at Imagination is like probably the most shameful thing in a theme park because it's just like it's just like so instantly outdated and it's 20 years old and they haven't kept it up and it's
Is that the one after Figment?
yes.
It's
like
so
it's
sad.
yeah.
No wonder that whole Figment thing is just bad.
It's like a little exclave of DisneyQuest, honestly. It's like that's the same level of pathetic, like, just complete
Yeah.
shit.
Yes.
What's really sad about the current Imageworks is that the one back in the 80s actually had more interesting tech.
Yeah, they downgraded it, and
Yeah.
which is not supposed to happen at Epcot, which is supposed to be of tomorrow.
Okay, I have someone ringing my doorbell for some reason. Sorry.
Okay.
That's all right. So, on that note, I think it's time to call this podcast to a close. Thank you very much for being on the podcast. Demyx, who is probably opening their door right now. And Tereglith, it's been very nice to chat with you about theme parks and
Yeah.
learn all your amazing theme park knowledge that
Sure.
I wish I could keep in my brain.
Yeah. Feel free to ask me anytime. Just tag me. I'm always happy to dispense theme park knowledge on the avocado.
Yeah, and on that note, all of us are community members at a fun website called The Avocado. You can find at the-avocado.org, which is a great pop culture and, I guess, society website where you can chat about movies, video games, theme parks, and the like. If you'd like to keep up to date with this podcast specifically, it has its own website at avocadogamescast.wordpress.com, where we post each episode along with a link dump. So I try to fact check some of the stuff we say on this podcast that we're not sure about. So if I lied, you'll find out later if you read the link dump. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes or on Google Play Music. Just search for Avocado Gamescast. And any other podcast app that uses the same feeds as iTunes or Google Play Music should have us listed as well. Well, thank you folks for being on the podcast. And we'll see you listeners next time. Take care, everyone.